Welcome everybody out to our October 3rd, 2024 Planning Commission meeting. We're going to start our meeting tonight with opening remarks and the pledge led by Kurt Bankhead.
I choose to say my opening remarks in the form of a prayer. Our Father in heaven, we're grateful for this opportunity we can be here tonight. We're grateful for the freedoms that this country affords us, that we can meet and gather and be able to voice our opinions. We ask you, Father, to bless us this night, that our families will be protected and watched over. Please bless this nation, that will lead and guide it and direct it. And we ask for these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Please rise and follow me to pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Kurt. Okay, review of the agenda. Any changes to that? Okay. Accept a motion then to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second. Okay. Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Have you guys had a chance to review the minutes from last month? Any questions or changes on those? Okay.
Make a motion, we approve the minutes.
Second motion. Motion and a second to approve the September 5th minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, no consent items tonight. So we will start with the Vernon Investments rezone.
Yeah, so the Vernon Investments rezone, this is a continuation from a project that was brought up in July. It's a request to rezone 5.06 acres from the agricultural zone to the industrial zone. The industrial zone allows for like general manufacturing, commercial kennels / animal shelter, storage and warehousing, self-service and storage facility, transport services, general vehicle repair, mobile food truck, telecommunications facility major, telecommunications facility minor. It's agricultural to the north, east, and south, but to the west it's Wellsville City. The nearest parcel that's in the county is about 2 miles away, that's in the industrial zone. That's pretty much it. It was continued because last time there was just questions that the Planning Commission had that an applicant wasn't here. I do believe someone is here today to speak for him.
Perfect. Okay. Okay, thanks, Connor. Okay, commissioners, do we want to start with some questions that we had? I know one of them, if the applicant, you want to come up and just state your name, and then we might have a couple questions for you.
My name is Mike Presley. I'm with Sharp Transportation.
Okay, thanks, Michael. So I know one of the questions, I'll try to remember from, I think it was 2 months ago, three, time goes fast, was if you had approached Wellsville City about the possibility of annexation.
We have. I think that's still in discussion with them. There's a couple things that are holding up. Some approval through there. A lot of it has to do with the water line, but that's still in negotiation. We talk with them monthly.
Because to us, it seemed like that probably made the most sense to start with, is if they would annex you. It would fit their city plan better than the county plan. So it sounds like you're working towards that.
Yeah, we work with Scott over there monthly about different things with our property. Yeah. So, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just where it kind of splits the line right there. It's just an odd piece to try to work on.
Yep.
So I guess the question then is that something you would really prefer to be in the city?
For this particular purpose, I believe so. Yeah, because just the way our property line is split there, for what we're looking to do, half of it's in the city, half's in the county, and it's more or less just going to be used for parking of equipment.
Yeah.
So it behooves us either way.
Your property in the city, it is zoned in which zone?
Commercial.
Commercial.
What do you see as the advantage then of us getting it, rezoning it now if you expect to be in the city within just a matter of negotiation or annexation there?
I'm not 100% sure on that. I think it had to do something with getting the rezone would allow us to more easily move it into the city side. The people that were supposed to be here had to go out of town and weren't able to be here for that, so they asked me to kind of attend. I've been working on them a lot with the building side of things, with some of the other land side of things. As far as what benefits it has now versus later, I'm not sure, but I think at the end of the day, we just want to be able to use that land that's owned by Vernon Investments, also known as Sharp Transportation, to be able to park the equipment on.
Because your upgrades will probably be the same, right? The requirements for that dirt road that goes past it, either way, you'll probably have to pave that road, whether you're county or city.
Yep,
Everything, other than the jurisdiction's probably the same for.
it's all the same.
For the most part.
Yeah, we've had our, the architectural staff, we've met with the city, the whole paving of that road, all the sewer, electrical, everything's all done, everything's all to code, everything's ready to go. We just got to get some of these approvals in place and then we can start.
To get it annexed.
Mm-hmm.
I think that certainly, at least for me, clears up some of the questions we had last time, because there was just no one here to ask why they weren't pursuing that option. It sounds like you are.
Yeah, we, like I said, we meet
Sense.
constantly with them. They're 100% supportive of it. I've been to the last 3 meetings on the city side, and it's been a unanimous approval across the board. So once we get, I guess, this side of things cleared up, then we're ready to proceed.
And we haven't heard, Stephen, anything from Wellsville, so. For or against.
Yep. Wellsville hasn't responded.
I can help push the envelope there a little bit with Scott and maybe try to get him to respond a little quicker
Yeah.
if needs be.
I've talked to Scott before about this. He has no objection to it.
Yeah. Well, especially with how we're situated too. I mean, most, if you look at all the surrounding properties owned by us anyway, so it's not a nuisance. There's no dust issues. There's no noise issues. It's just, we need additional room for some more parking and stuff, so.
Yeah, and either way, the upgrades to the infrastructure is gonna be made, so.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any other questions from commissioners?
Open public hearing?
Okay, yeah, we'll open up. Is there anyone from the public that wants to speak to this? Come up and state your name and.
My name's Travis Nielsen, and when I was a youngster, I was in the fair program. Sharps Transportation helped me out with raising 2 fair steers, also helped my sister and one of my friends. They are very charitable. They donate to Mountain Crest, Little Lambs, and a few other causes. I believe Zan Sharp is a stand-up guy, and his trucking company is what makes him able to do that. So I am for it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay,
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
okay. Any other questions for staff from commissioners? Okay, I would accept the recommendation, then we've got options for denial written up or approval here. We can change those if we want to add anything, or we can go with either of those.
Mr. Chairman. So just reconfirming or refreshing here, a rezone obviously doesn't require conditions or whatever else. Rezone is just, we recommend to the council.
Yep.
And then once they come back with whatever their intention is pending that it passes,
Yeah, if they
that's
need-
when we look at the conditions
Yep,
and such, so.
this is just the first step for them.
I'm just offering that I'm in favor of it.
Is that a recommendation?
Well, I want to hear if somebody else has a problem, but
Well, especially where they're working with, Wellsville City already, and
yeah.
Wellsville's got commercial around it and has this plan to be commercial. I agree. I don't
That,
see
that
it.
was an initial concern of why we didn't hear from Wellsville City, but pending that there's been communication and we didn't hear from them, shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, if
So-
Wellsville City had it residential all the way around, there'd be a little harder to, but where it's already commercial, everything inside the city there.
I am, if nobody else is in opposition or wants to say something, I'll make a motion. I would make a motion that we recommend to the county council approving the Vernon Investments rezone.
We've got a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. I think now we need to go, we had a public hearing we're a few minutes after, right? We're just about there, I guess. On one it said 5:35 and the other one was, so 5:45. We probably don't have time to do item 2 before 5:45. So
You can bump it up.
we'll start the public hearing. Well, we can have the presentation first and then we should be there. We'll go with that.
Want to jump over to
Yep.
number 3?
Jump to number 3 so we don't get too behind on the public hearings.
Perfect, so this is the Chamber's rezone. It's a request to rezone 8.47 acres from the agricultural zone to the commercial zone. The maximum potential, number of potential lots is just 1 still. The parcel is legal. The commercial zone would allow for a commercial business, campground, commercial kennel, self-service, storage facility, general vehicle repair, medical services, human care services, transient lodging, restaurant, mobile food truck, educational facility, telecommunications facility major, telecommunications facility minor, and a private airport. Surrounding parcels are used for a mix of agricultural and residential to the north, agricultural to the east, and residential to the south and west. The nearest parcel in the county that's in the commercial zone is located 2.85 miles to the south of the subject parcel. Keep in mind, Smithfield City is right there, and the closest commercial zone in Smithfield is about a mile away. The general plan, the parcel is located in the Smithfield City annexation area. Code does not specify where commercial zones should go, but it kind of gives the general guidelines of to provide compatible locations for retail, office, and business/commerce activities, to enhance employment opportunities, to encourage the efficient use of land, to enhance property values, and to strengthen the county's tax base. This zone must be appropriately served by suitable public roads, have access to the necessary water and utilities, and have an adequate provision of public services. The Cache County Future Land Use Map identifies this area as agriculture and ranching. The county general plan states that the purpose of agricultural and ranching is agricultural and rangeland uses on private lands under conservation easements are expected to continue in the valley. Separation from dense residential developments is advantageous. The agricultural landscape provides separation between adjacent municipalities and protects suitable soils. Preferred uses for the zone include agriculture, ranching, rural residential uses at densities of less than 1 unit per 10 acres, conservation easements, and conserved public lands and agritourism. Secondary land uses include industrial and commercial uses that directly support agriculture, so processing, packaging, and distribution. Clustered subdivision developments, outdoor recreation, and farm worker housing. Discouraged uses include residential developments at densities of greater than 1 unit per 10 acres, if not a clustered subdivision development. Commercial office, commercial retail, flex office/industrial, heavy industrial. It is in the urban expansion overlay. Smithfield City's future land use map identifies this area as agriculture, and their plan says that the zone aims to preserve and protect existing agricultural areas, the visual aesthetic of a rural community, and soil quality. The minimum frontage in the commercial zone is 150 feet. The property has access to 6600 North, which is a county road, is maintained year-round, and services agricultural and residential properties. It's classified as a minor collector, but would only need to meet major local road standards. Currently has a paved width of 20 feet, has no right-of-way, no paved shoulder, and a 1 to 2 foot gravel shoulder and a 5 foot clear zone. It's considered substandard as to travel lanes, right-of-way, paved shoulder, gravel shoulder, and clear zone. It also has access to 800 West, which is a Smithfield City road. Cache County Fire District asks that once development happens, sufficient water supply and road access requirements are met. The applicant will have to work with waste management for solid waste disposal. Notices were sent, posted in 3 different locations and posted to the Utah Public Notice website on September 20th. And staff has no recommendation, but we will help Planning Commission draft a letter to County Council.
Thanks, Connor. Any questions for Connor? Okay, good summary. Okay, we're at that time, then I guess we could have a motion to open a public hearing for the Chambers rezone.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, is there anyone from the public that would like to speak for or against this rezone? Come up and state your name and
Hi, my name's Don Cripps. It's my house that's 50 feet from the border of this property. I'm definitely against it. The rumor going around is that it's intended to be a storage facility. Very concerned about that in terms of property values for my house. I doubt my house becomes more saleable when it's butted up against a self-storage facility. Also, I don't think it meets the requirements of the ordinance itself that says efficient use of land and to enhance property values and to strengthen the county's tax base, enhance employment opportunities. Most of these self-storage facilities these days are almost completely automated, and I doubt there's going to be more than 2 to 3 people employed in that. Also, it is prime agricultural land. It has been that since we moved into this area, and at the rate agricultural land in that area is being eaten up by developments, I would say that it's better to leave it that way. And, you know, it could be sold. The person interested in this self-storage facility could purchase a piece of property that's in a less ideal location and build a facility there.
thank you.
I am Chris Chambers. I'm the one trying to get this rezoned. I totally agree. I want to keep it at open space, but it's just physically not been dollar-wise, it's not feasible. And
Chris, just address your
Oh.
comments now, sorry.
okay,
Don't respond to comments from.
that's fine.
other-
This has been a damn hard decision for me because I grew up a farmer and I want to keep it open space myself. But right across the street to the east of there, Visionary owns all that, and it's going to be all houses there. And I don't want to sell it. I want to control my destiny on that ground. That's why my intentions are. I don't want to sell it. And so, yes, I'm over by some storage units, and they're a lot better than apartments because I got apartments in my backyard and homes in my backyard. And so, in a lot of ways, I feel like I'm keeping out from my neighbors too by not having homes on it. So, I speak in favor, of course.
Anyone else?
My name is Teresa Larson. My husband is Kent. We live across the street, a little bit this way from the property. We're the closest house across the street from them. Teresa and Kent Larson, you can see us there. Okay, we're zoned A10. We lived out there for about 30 years, and we really wanted to keep it that way. We have clean air, green space. I know everybody wants this. We don't want noise pollution, and we have visionary. Put 500 houses, I don't know. There's so many, I can't count anymore. And I would like to keep it a residential area. Because across the street are all the kids who've just moved in. They like the open space, the green pastures. Pretty soon it's not going to look like that anymore. I just think that you can't put 8 acres of storage units. I mean, that is a lot. And I heard that if we zone commercial, or he zones commercial, anything could happen on that property, and we wouldn't necessarily have anything to say about it because it's already been to be rezoned, which feels really uncomfortable to me to agree to something that I don't know what is I'm agreeing to. Storage bays to me are kind of an eyesore in a residential area. They reduce the property value, what I've read, 12.9%. There's $1 million homes all around that area. And I understand people wanting to make money on their property. I love my neighbors west of me. However, I guess there was some grandfather thing that got rezoned over there. And so because of that, we lost a sale on our property because of water. Now we've been talking to water people, but there's a moratorium on water all around from where they built those 3 houses and a horse barn. I don't know, I can't point to it. It's just west of me, yes, there. So they put this where it's A10. It was supposed to just be 1 house per 10 acres. Yeah, I mean, just kind of, from what we understood. But there was some grandfathered in plan, so they did this. It was fine, until they came back and put a moratorium on the water. The people who wanted to buy my 8 acres couldn't buy it anymore because there was no septic. They couldn't get septic, can't get well. Amalga said no more water for that area. So I'm concerned about our financial hit. We've already had one, so it looks like we're gonna, maybe if this is approved, we'll get another one, which, doesn't make me feel very happy. But another thing is I'm concerned about with Visionary, we've been pretty inundated right now with growth. We haven't been able to get up and down our street. There's just building continuously. We've almost been run over in the street by the big equipment. It's been a lot for 5 years. But that's not here nor there. But I'm worried about our wells, the groundwater pollution, I guess the noise. I don't know much about storage units, if you can come and go at all hours of the night. I would like to, if they're going to rezone, I would like to see them rezone for maybe a couple, like an extra house, possibly, in that area, so they could have a couple houses on there, so they could make money as well. And that would look prettier. We could keep a residential area. I hate to make it go commercial because you just never know what's going to happen. And then the next guy can do commercial as well, and then the next guy maybe, and then it'll just kind of be a mess out there. And so that's what I worry about. And we just need a little time to absorb what's already happened to us. But I want to thank you for the prayer earlier on at the beginning of this meeting. And thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, doesn't look like it. Accept a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second?
Moved in second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, commissioners, what would you like to do?
Well, I'd like to close the gate 20 years ago and have the valley like it was, but since I didn't get to do that, Visionary is going to build lots of homes right there, and they all want storage units. It just goes with those little lots and little houses. And they're either going to be driving clear across town to another set of storage units somewhere close, or they aren't so close. I don't know, storage units, they don't use any sewer, they don't use any septic, they don't use hardly any water. All the water has to be contained that comes off of them into a collection basin, so that's kind of taken care of. I know what it's like to have ground you farmed all your life turned into houses, but
You do.
unless you own it and can change that yourself by leaving it that way, and the time comes when you can't do that anymore. I found that out too, so I'd have to be in favor of it, I think.
Any other comments?
Is there landscaping, I'm not familiar with the rules on this, but is there landscaping ordinance there or rules you can put in place where it could be?
So that would come into place later
Right,
on.
but I'm just saying, if you did
Yeah, there
approve
could
it,
be.
then, concerned about having homes around the storage unit, it could be landscaped to where
Yeah.
it wouldn't be an eyesore or something like that, would be an option.
And we did get a letter from Smithfield City.
They didn't,
Yeah. They didn't have any concerns or issues with the rezone request at this time. It's not been submitted for annexation. Which is maybe, Chris, if you want to come up, maybe you can answer that question for me. So if Smithfield City is in favor or not opposed to the rezone, have you asked them if they would
I have not.
consider annexing it into the city?
I have not, for the reason that I've talked to some people on the city council that I know, and they have said that in their master plan, they've got that all as housing.
All is residential. So they
Residential.
probably wouldn't rezone it if you were moving into
Yeah,
the city.
but they're not opposed to me doing what I'm doing. So
Okay.
that's, and I mean, I grew up there my whole life, but I don't want to sell it. I don't want to sell it. So,
I think to me their letter's pretty clear that they don't have any concerns or issues with the rezone. So,
Yeah, I did. I'm a little torn on this one. I see, there's definitely gonna be a need for storage units. Anytime you put in, as the one lady said, 500 homes or whatever's going out there. In the end, it'll be thousands, because it's just gonna keep going west. They need places to keep their stuff, because they're gonna be small lots. But then also, if we approve one commercial out in the middle of residential, does a guy 2 blocks north want another one rezoned?
we're already dealing with it on the north, Smithfield City's doing it within their own boundaries on the southwest
Yeah.
corner.
Yep.
But we've had a request out there that, them people originally, it was under A10.
Yeah.
We just saw that within the last year.
Yep. And
so-
that one's in their future annexation for commercial industrial area.
Yeah,
And I
but
think-
it's close to the housing, so.
Right, this one to me is similar to the Nibley one that came maybe a year ago or 9 months ago. They're south of Nibley.
Oh, quarter in.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of it, but, and so, again, it makes good sense to have them there. So, yeah, that's just I'm not sure. I see the benefit. But again, we're only a recommendation too, so it's still gotta go through another level of, approval, one way or the other.
I'm torn as well on this one. It's a hard thing. I'm the guy that always advocates that if we want open space, we better let farmers make some money. They need to be able to make some money to keep that ground in open space, and so I advocate for wherever we can for allowing agriculture to make enough money that they can keep open space. I'm a little torn on the location here, and that's my biggest challenge is specifically where it is, but knowing what's coming. The arguments that you make do make sense there, because it will be residential.
By selling that, he can continue to farm the other stuff till the money's gone, right?
And that's my point, is that
If he doesn't sell it, builds the storage units, he can continue to farm for a long time.
Yeah.
These will make the payments.
it's,
It is it's a tough one. Okay, commissioners, any other questions? Nolan? You've been
Like
pretty
you
quiet.
guys.
You've been pretty quiet tonight.
I agree with property rights. I'm just, the commercial in this area, then just like you said, then you get more commercial. So I hate to see commercial and residential, but this is a thing that goes with residential, so it's tough.
Yep, you gotta come up here though. Since you're the applicant, we'll take one more comment from you.
There is already a commercial directly west of me. There's Nielsen Cabinets or whatever, Willowbrook Cabinets. They're directly west of me, so you've already got some commercial in that area.
Do you know where it's at?
Huh?
Do you know where it's at?
Yeah, let's see.
Zoom out
Zoom out.
a little more.
I gotta look at it head on. It's over,
West.
it's right, see that Troy and Renee Bingham?
Right.
It's right north of them.
You're talking about these?
Yeah,
ones?
that
Yeah,
corner there.
right there.
Okay.
Is that it?
The-
No, it's,
no. Isn't it right? I thought it was.
I'm all confused now.
Isn't it
It's
right?
right across the street, it's right,
There's your piece right there.
There's my piece.
Willowbrook.
Willowbrook, yeah, I saying that's Willowbrook Cabinets, yes.
I just don't see it on there yet.
Yeah,
Is it east?
no, it's west of me.
West.
Straight west, yeah.
It
Yeah,
might be a little further.
right there, Doug
Oh, yeah,
Nielsen,
there you go.
Susan Trust, right there.
Yeah,
Oh,
There's already-
just a couple of lots down.
yeah.
It's on the same block. But it is already, you've already got some commercial already right there and right next to me.
It's just, yeah, it's just not zoned commercial, because it was in
Yes.
the old, under A10, you could do those back in the day.
Yes.
Yep.
And you've also got some storage sheds that you've been just north or southwest of Smithfield. They've come back in and they're doing more units and
Yeah.
they did not have to be back when they put their first set in, you could do,
Yeah,
you could
under
A10
A10, you could do storage units.
storage
back then,
units
And then they
and-
had to get rezoned. do
rezoned to
any
come
more.
back in. And that's within Smithfield City's annexation too,
Yep.
so.
Yeah. We've closed the public hearing. We just let Chris, because the proponent sometimes has questions where I made him come up for some other stuff to answer, so we don't, after we close the public hearing, we've got your comments on there for now. But you can submit them to the planning commission,
County Council.
office staff, and they will take them to the county council. Because this will move forward, whether we apply, recommend approval or denial, it will still go to the county council for the final say. Okay, commissioners?
I'm ready.
Go ahead.
I'll give somebody else the opportunity though,
If you're ready.
unless you want me to.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, once again, I'd move that we recommend to the county council approval of the Chambers rezone. Yeah.
I second that.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. We now have another public hearing that we're a few minutes behind, but we'll get the next one. The Honey Solar Stone Project Ordinance Amendment.
going to be taking this one. And so the applicant, submitted to, which is Enel Green Power North America Inc., Enel, has submitted an application to change county code to allow for a commercial solar facility to be built within the county. Just as a little bit of a background and as a reminder, the county council and planning commission had a joint meeting and reviewed this application, or the applicant prior to submittal, so they could present their different ideas, receive feedback, and make alterations to their application or future application. And so this is the same company that, and same application that was discussed at that meeting back in July. And so the big change that they want to do is a couple fold. You want to go to attachment A in the application. Up a little bit. So down just a tiny bit. So we can see numbers 1 through 4. So their application is really proposing to do 4 different things. So the first one is adding utility facility commercial solar as a definition within our code. The second is to amend section 170250, effective period of land use authority approval of Cache County Code. And we'll look at each of these changes here in a second, so I won't go into them in detail. Number 3 is proposing utility facility commercial solar be made a conditional use in the public infrastructure zone. And then 4 is adding minor modification process to the code for utility facility commercial solar use. So let's go ahead and talk about kind of generally what they're wanting to add. So you want to scroll down to number 1 here. So the first thing they want to do to the code is add for utility facility for commercial solar. Currently, under our code as it stands, this is not a listed out use. And so by our code, if it's not specifically mentioned or listed, it is then prohibited use. And so the first thing, in order for this to allow to be forward, is to define it and add it as a use on the use table. And so this is how they have recommended defining it. So utility facility commercial solar, a facility that uses photovoltaic panels to generate electricity from sunlight for cell and off-site use, including solar panels and arrays, above and below ground electronic collection lines, communication lines, cables and towers, transformers, inverters, switch yards, and substations, operations, maintenance, and control buildings and facilities, battery energy storage systems, access and service rods, fences and gates, and other customarily incidental uses or accessory fixtures, equipment, and facilities. Within the so that defines the use, but within the definition, they also provided some nice exceptions for the use as well, which would include, so there'd be no minimum lot size, maximum lot coverage, structure height, or structure spacing restrictions, or off-road parking requirements apply to a commercial solar facility. The only setback applicable to a commercial solar utility facility is the structure other than internal access or service roads or the project boundary fence must be set back 30 feet from the outer property boundary of the facility as a whole, except that where outer property boundary abuts property owners by the landowner who also owns land within the project boundary. Participating landowners, no setbacks applies. So that's the first big change they want to do, essentially integrate a use within our definitions and define what that use is and provided a few standards with that.
Stephen, do you want to go through all of them before we give you any comments?
Yes, I mean, the applicant is here, and I would recommend allowing them to speak to it too.
Okay.
And so I'll jump down to number 3, because I think this ties more appropriately with this, is number 3 essentially is just adding that use onto the use table and making it a conditional use under the public infrastructure zone. This is important because essentially they'd have to rezone any property to have this on it if the property doesn't already have a public infrastructure overlay, which there's not very many that do. And so this would grant legislative authority to the county to approve whether or not a rezone would take place. So this enhances your discretion. So number 2, I'm not going to go through the exact details, but I'm not going to read through it because we have it here in front of us. But the big thing they're looking for is a longer period before an application expires. And so right now, once a land use application is submitted and approved, they have a year to get the permit recorded. And so what they're seeking is that they would have a period of 3 years to get the permit recorded. And that they could potentially do an expansion of an additional 3 years on that. I have some comments on that, but maybe I'll just get through the last section and then we'll just turn it over to the Planning Commission. The next one is they want to ensure that their application wants to ensure that minor and maintenance changes would be that there would be some sort of minor modification added into our code. This would include the replacement of equipment, the placement of additional structures or accessories to the utility equipment, and replacement of alternative type of infrastructure within the facility itself. So staff has a couple, there's also a few pictures that when we met in July, the council and planning commission asked to see like some pictures of what a potential facility would look like, and they provided those that are included in attachment B. So staff really sees that there's three options in front of the planning commission. The first one is to review the code, recommended by the applicant, hold a public hearing, and then make recommendation to the council to approve or deny the request as written. The second one is to do that, except for make proposed changes to that code tonight, and then make a recommendation. And the third is to continue the item up to 90 days to do a little bit additional research and edits to the code. One thing that was included in the packet was a few different counties and a packet put together by the International City Managers and County Managers Association and the American Planning Association put a packet together for standards and guidelines that is quite extensive. And so one thing the Planning Commission may want to consider is whether or not we want to move forward with this, whether or not the standards that are proposed here are adequate to govern such a facility, or if there's additional standards that we would want to consider. So that's kind of my basic summary of what's being requested. Are there any questions for me?
Could you just touch base on, Mr. Chairman? Could you touch base on item 3, the zones? They were all in except for the one overlay was a C, so does that mean that the N's are all no's?
Yeah.
It would just be a conditional in the,
Correct.
why, what's that? What's that?
N stands for not permitted.
Oh, public infrastructure.
Yeah, so N stands for not permitted, and so every zone except for a public infrastructure overlay would be not permitted.
Could you give an example of maybe 1 or 2 places where that overlay is currently?
Let's see. Let me pull the zoning map real
They
quick.
were mostly the communication towers, right?
Yeah, mostly communication towers. The big natural gas pipeline has the overlay on it.
So it's gonna have to be, to get to that public infrastructure, it's gonna have to be rezoned. We don't have anything right now.
We don't.
That's even gonna be capacity-wise to handle what they're wanting.
Correct. There currently is not anything
I'm
to
good
that
now.
scale that would allow for a project like this that currently has that zoning.
Thank you.
Just as you bring that up, maybe that's something a little broader than this. We have public infrastructure overlay. I wonder about if there's a utility overlay that we could put in. You know, I'm just thinking of some other proposed projects involving hydroelectric and other things like that that maybe don't necessarily fit in this. That maybe that makes more sense, that we look a little broader at a different overlay zone, creating a different overlay zone. I don't know if that makes sense or not.
What, what would be interesting with that would be, and even as I looked at the concerns on the last one, I mean, I know that you always bring up the one kind of stores that are in the one industrial use, but,
Not tonight.
that was pretty broad in that scenario, so, I mean, utility-wise, if we eliminated it to like a utility zone.
It would be the
we'd
same
want
thing,
it
you'd
to
have to
be-
rezone and.
Yeah, just but a fewer instead of a whole wide, but
And then-
there's probably not many that would fit it.
And that also brings up some of the challenges. I mean, we've been placing the entire parcel into the public infrastructure overlay, whereas sometimes we'll have a parcel that has a tower on that, and we've got a several 100-acre parcel. And so, given this, you know, you could have a lot of property that would be impacted with that, so.
So you can see on the, kind of pulled up the map, the pink hashes are the current overlays. If you zoom out a little bit, we can kind of see that's the Hiram sewer treatment. Those are Wellsvilles. And so this is mostly what we'll see. Can you want to scroll out quite a bit more? And so as you can see, there is not a lot of these facilities. There is one a little bit further south with a pipeline and a couple in the north section, but that's mostly what they are, is just other local infrastructure needs with a couple transmission.
Go just a little more up, down, I mean. Yeah, there's that Ruby.
Yep.
Ruby pipeline, okay.
That's interesting. But on them, even with them, is that only within the easement on Ruby? It must be, because otherwise it'd show the whole parcel.
Yeah, you can see that it's split up.
So that, there's containing it to the easement.
Yeah. Well, I'd just give a quick opinion on that, and I may be off, but it seems like there's a lot of exemptions in this. Basically, the proposal is, it would exempt them from the majority of oversight that we would have in there. So I wouldn't personally be comfortable moving forward with that without doing some significant more work on this.
There's enough of these in the small communities around the state that, now that they're in, how do they feel about them, and what kind of coding did they have for a utility to bring in those?
And I would just bring up with the changes in these, now it's not just solars, and you notice we had the batteries in there. The batteries are some of the bigger concerns. There was a fairly recent fire down in Arizona, Surprise, Arizona, and it took over a month to put the fire out when these battery storage or energy storage systems catch on fire. And so I think there's a lot that needs to go into preparing an ordinance around this.
Okay, do we want to hear from the proponent?
We still have a public hearing.
Yeah, right,
Okay.
and open a public hearing? We can do that first. Let's do the public hearing and see what comments we have. Do I have a
Mr. Chairman, I move we open the public hearing.
Second?
motion, a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, is there anyone here that would like to comment for or against the proposed code changes? It can be a quick public hearing. Oh, we got,
as the applicant,
come on up.
do you just want to be available for any questions? I know you've already heard from me. My name is Cole Stalker. So yeah, with this, I think with the continuance and the language, working on that more, I'm wholly in support of that. As a Cache Valley native, I think having this right the first time is a great way to go about it. So if more of these facilities come in the future, that Cache Valley is prepared for it. So maybe more speaking as a Cache County native than as a applicant. That is my comment on that.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
As was mentioned, your proposal here is pretty broad. Do you see that broadness in other counties where these facilities are going in? I'm uncomfortable with the broadness of what you have
Certainly, yeah.
requested.
Go
I was
ahead.
gonna say, last time when you were here, you said there's only one other in Texas that is being put in by your company, or that is currently in the States now? Is that, do I
No,
recall
that would be
right?
battery storage. There's a few going in Texas now. We have several solar and wind facilities in the central part of the country. We're doing a lot of work in the west right now, but they're all fairly early stage. Speaking to the broadness, it kind of depends on county to county, right? With experience, it's a good starting point. Generally, with the CUP process, that's where it kind of narrows down as far as like the fire plan and those kind of things. So generally, as far as the initial code, we kind of suggest something broad, and then it kind of gets narrowed down from there. But it is a good starting point. With the facility, I know you mentioned the extensions, and maybe I'm incorrect, but I had assumed that it was 3 one-year extensions instead of 6 total.
Yes, you're right, sorry.
Okay, yeah, so it's not 6 years of extension before recording the permit. The one-year extensions are good because of supply chain issues and things like this. A project like this is, there's a lot of moving parts. So it's really hard to narrow it down to like 1 year, it's all done, ready to go. So it gives us a little flexibility for material changes, those kind of things. There's all kinds of things that go into the supply chain geopolitically that make this very difficult to kind of narrow it down to 1 year. So that's why we're requesting the 3. But yeah, I agree, 6 would be a little bit extensive. So.
Okay, any other questions for him while he's up there? Thank you.
Thanks.
Maybe just I mean, Stephen, we've done, I mean, if somebody comes up on their year, we've done extensions just from the planning commission level, correct?
Correct. And so right now you can request an extension already, but typically I think maybe the misunderstanding or it taken into consideration, the year is for all the plans to be approved and submitted to the county for approval. It doesn't necessarily represent site completion. So typically, as long as the conditional use has been approved and recorded, as long as there's activity and progress being made on the site, then the conditional use permit doesn't expire. And so that'd be my one thing, is whether or not, I haven't dealt with a facility like this in my career, and whether or not being able to record and get all the approved plans within that year is whether or not that is reasonable. I would probably say it might be, but maybe an extension might be appropriate for something of this scale. I don't know. But that is something I felt like should be considered by the commission.
Wouldn't that be more applicable to phases? Because I think of that, I don't know if you guys are familiar, but the one they put in over in Rich County, north of Woodruff or Randolph, that seemed to take like 3 years or longer.
Well, the Box Elder went over by Nucor. They've been moving around over there for 2 years.
Yeah, you don't have to have it complete. They probably had their permit in place early on.
Then held to the phase.
So I think if we're done with anyone else wanting to comment, we can close the public hearing and we can keep our discussion going.
I move that we close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Yeah, Stephen, my opinion would be, we've probably got a fair amount of work we need to do on this before I would be comfortable recommending passing anything. There's quite a few things in there that I think, at least for me, have concerns. Because that could be some pretty big, like Nolan said, there's some pretty broad stuff in there right now that.
Well, there's several small, as I drive through the state a lot, in these smaller communities. There's some that have been in place now for several years. And then the ones like over by Nucor, and the one in Rich County is pretty well completed now. I'd like to find out more what has been, now that they're up and going, are there some things that we should consider that might be part of how we would describe that in a zoning ordinance?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Was there any record of that meeting I was unable to attend the earlier meetings?
Oh, yeah. It's in the.
Oh, it was in the notes?
Yeah, there should be, and there should be a recording of it if you want to listen to it, which might be just as fun.
What was you guys' summary of it? Was it?
I think there was a lot of hesitation from both the planning commission and the county council, with the unknowns, right? Something, a proposal of that size, or what could be of that size if this gets, these code changes get approved, and how that fits into the character of Cache Valley. So I know that was a lot of it, and then the unknowns of what special conditions may need to be in there for a system like that we haven't dealt with yet. So I would say that's a real quick summary of it. Maybe some of the other commissioners felt differently, but.
If you saw in the picture, well, it's in your notes here, I guess, or was it the picture up there? They showed the battery storage containers. Yeah, there they are.
Yeah.
And apparently, I haven't seen those in other facilities that I've seen around around the state. And so that is, you know, like you brought up, that was a new thing, which I guess sounds reasonable if you're gonna put in a solar facility, having batteries to go behind it. But, yeah, that's a new idea of, you know, what could happen to a battery facility if it caught fire, like you said.
So I would maybe recommend, even if we do another joint meeting, to get input from the county council even, to see what they would want. I mean, I know we're the authority that changes some of that, but I think it would be good to get a little broader input on, in my mind, some pretty broad change, or big changes to.
What the appetite is.
Yeah, from current county code, just to make sure.
So do you want us to not do a 90 days move that we, put this out for 90 days or even 120 days?
I don't think there's any, we can just, I mean, I don't think there's any deadline on this where it's not an application for a project yet. I don't think the 90 days is even critical, is it? I mean,
It is, it's a legislative application, and because it's applicant-driven, I would still recommend
we do the
a
90.
reasonable time frame to respond to their request. Really, if the applicant's okay with us extending for longer than that, then I don't really have an issue with that, but I do, like I said, because it's applicant-driven and not staff-driven, I do think some reasonable time frame is probably appropriate.
I would hesitate on time frame. This would have to go before Policies and Procedures Committee and stuff, so there's a lot of stuff that goes in there, so I don't want to be crunched on drafting a policy because we're sitting as a time frame from a council standpoint.
Just indefinite then?
I mean, if we don't have to put a time frame on it, because council's already loaded with budget for the rest of the year, so.
Come on.
Come on.
Well, I think one of the biggest concerns with this too, no question, is location.
Well,
And we don't even know, I mean, I'm aware of where it was discussed, but I don't know, I just think
and that's just this one. Changing this would allow any landowner in the valley to
we look
request
at
a
the
rezone.
We look at the reflective, you know, to one community or another, being out in the middle of the valley, I mean, we got a lot of stuff to figure out before we pin it down.
I'll accept a recommendation from someone then.
I make a recommendation, we put an extension for 120 days, or 180 days.
That's good.
You can
That
be
we
up to.
request that the staff get some input, and I guess even up to council members, their commissioners, to look at other counties and see what the ramifications have been of solar fields in their communities. Because that, you know, the picture that we got from their first presentation on that west side out there is pretty dramatic to look across the valley and see that. Because the whole valley, the populous side of the valley would be looking right across that.
It's a little different than all the examples are on pretty flat ground. So you don't see it if you're across the trees, but that one you'll see anywhere in the county. We're not as flat here, so. Okay, we've got a recommendation for 180, up to 180 day extension.
I second the motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We will move back to agenda item number 2.
Yes, sir. From SR 30 to the Benson Road, west of Cecil's, on the west side of the
All right, Connor.
I'm
Take this one too, Stephen? Okay.
I'd be fine with that. But, so just a quick background on this. We've seen this a couple times before. And so the applicant is seeking for a temporary extraction CUP. So staff initially recommended denial of this item back in April. So it was heard on April, the first time it was heard was in April 4th, 2024. At the request of the agent, a 90-day continuance was granted by the Planning Commission to allow the applicant time to submit revised plans and additional analysis regarding traffic impacts. At the 11th of July meeting this year, Planning Commission, the agent requested another extension that was granted for an additional 90 days continuance up to this meeting for tonight. The applicant has submitted updated information last week on Wednesday, September 24th. That has been incorporated into the packet, and the staff report that's in front of the Planning Commission tonight is based off of that update. So we just have a couple items that I wanted to go through. The first one is the definition of what they're seeking. And so by code, there's two different types of extraction operations. Commercial operation requires a rezone for the mineral extraction overlay. However, a temporary mineral or also a minor extraction operation is considered a conditional use in all zones. So a temporary mineral extraction minor is defined this way in the code. This is 171350, subsection B. So temporary mineral extraction and excavation operation and associated uses, which may include but are not limited to asphalt or concrete plants, which are necessary to supply material for a specific project, i.e. road construction, or a minor extraction operation of less than 5 acres. These operations shall be allowed within any zone of the county as a conditional use, and these operations will have to operate under the same standard as a commercial operation. The termination of the specific project shall also terminate the conditional use permit and the use of the pit. Once the project is complete, the owner or operator shall begin closure and operation within 6 months. So within the staff report, we provided quite an extensive background for this property. This property has been doing as within the background. The property has had some grading and exaction taking place since 2014 with a variety of applications and permits that have been sought. They also, as stated within the report as well, the Development Services have issued some code enforcement on it that was appealed. And that appeal letter and findings is also included in the staff report that kind of defines that indeed what's taking place on this property is an extraction and site grading that has been operating without proper permits, which is why the applicant has submitted a CUP today. So the letter of intent that were submitted with conditional use permit seeks to establish a temporary mineral and minor extraction per the code I just quoted. The letter of intent states that the property owner is actively engaged in various improvements to the subject property related to his agricultural operation. The agricultural operation states that it is raising and selling longhorn beef. The letter of intent further states that due to the severe incline on the property, the owner has been unable to utilize the property for agricultural operation. And in order to fully utilize this property, he needs to grade large areas around the property. And so, as the letter of intent states, and I'll quote here, as shown through Exhibit A, attached here too, all materials to be extracted is currently located within a 4.97 acre section of cut area. Cut area is a term of art in the land engineering field intended to refer to the area of a project in which material will need to be removed as cut from the property, while there are other pieces of the property that will be receiving material from this cut area. All material to be extracted is located in the 4.97 acres of this property. Fill area is a term of part in the land engineering field for an area in which material has been added in order to raise the elevation. All material needed for the fill area will be taken from the material removed from the cut area. However, the cut area contains substantial additional material that will need to be removed from the property. Because all the material, however staged, will have been material removed from the cut area, this project complies with the requirements of 171350B as it relates to the requirements that the extraction operation be a minor extraction operation of less than 5 acres. So the applicant has provided a couple maps that were within the packet of areas to be leveled, the extraction area and the site plan, including access, as the Exhibit A, and proposed site plan post-completion of this project as Exhibit B within them. Neither of these maps outline the different acreage. However, based on staff's measurement, the A ranges around 8 acres, and site plan the B, the proposed site plan post-completion is around 4.5 acres, something like that. That's based on just GIS measurement. The applicant also included attachment C, which was the original engineered site grading plans. The applicant agents stated, and I quote, "To please include the engineering schematics as background information for the Planning Commission. The intent is not referencing the engineering schematic was to help clarify that the COP is relating to only part of the total effort, and so the greater than 5 acre scope of the total effort on the property is different than the extraction operation requested by the applicant. The operation is governed by the letter intent alone." So just with this first standard, I think this is where my first concern with the project comes up. As stated by the code, that a minor extraction operation is limited to a maximum of 5 acres. The applicant has indicated that the cut area, so the area that they're taking material directly out, is 4.97 acres. However, in my opinion, I would not consider just the cut area the operation. Operation, in my opinion, would include access, storage, grading of material as well, which is clearly taking place in a greater than 5 acre area. If you look at the map itself, the current pit, or the current grading area that you can see there is around 8.5 acres based on GIS measurement. And so I think that's something to take into consideration. I know the applicant, I spoke to the agent beforehand, and they have a response to that, and would like to present that to the Planning Commission as well. So my next concern is, so the letter of intent also goes through a few other things. So one of the criteria within a conditional use permit is that they have to mitigate any detrimental effects. Or we can create standards to mitigate any detrimental effects. However, it is important by state code, mitigate does not necessarily mean eliminate. And so if they can take steps to mitigate detrimental effects of a project, that is what we should consider. And so some of those, for example, the letter of intent states that the extraction operation will have sporadic hours based on needs of recipients who have requested material. Per the LOI, in no event will the hours of operation exceed 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, excluding holidays. The applicant also stated that there will be no full-time employees as part of this permit. However, that project itself will not employ any employees, full or part-time, though some employees of applicant's company may participate in removal operation. Traffic and parking. The letter of intent, the applicant states that there will be a maximum of 20 loads per day with an average of 7 loads per day during the non-winter months. The dump trucks used to remove the excavated material will not remain on site. There's no planned signage. The applicant does not anticipate any equipment required for minor, or anticipated equipment required for the minor operation includes a trackhoe, water truck, front-end loader, bulldozer, and dump truck. The size of the dump truck utilized for the operation was not included with the letter of intent. The letter of intent states that this will not be a processing facility, so there won't be a crusher on site. And for surface and stormwater drainage, the property owner currently has a detailed stormwater pollution prevention plan in place as part of the land disturbance permit. to prevent runoff and erosion, which the county has issued the land disturbance permit. And then reclamation, the applicant states that they will put the topsoil back on the cut area, and that, however, I don't think the letter of intent, if I remember right, does not specify a timeline, but the code requires that the project is completed, the owner or operation shall begin closure and reclamation operation within 6 months. So one of the other impacts that I feel like it's important to talk about is impacts to roadway, therefore health and safety and welfare. The applicant has submitted a traffic study to the county, which essentially indicates that the operation will not have a negative impact on traffic flow within the area. That traffic report was included, and so were the findings, and is currently being reviewed by the county engineering office, which we do have a representative here that if you have any additional questions about their current review, they'll be available to answer. So there is some concerns based on the roadway that they'll access. So Smithville Canyon Road will be the point of access to this extraction operation. It's an existing county facility that provides access to residential and agricultural properties as well as recreation areas in the Cache National Forest. The road also acts as recreation facilities for walkers, runners, and bicyclists. It is classified as a minor local road and has a speed limit of 25 miles an hour. Minor local roads are defined as minor local roads serve almost exclusively to provide access to properties adjacent to the road. Minor local roads generally serve residents or other non-commercial land users. Many minor local roads are cul-de-sacs or loop roads with no through continuity. The length of minor local road is typically short because the sole function of local road is to provide local access. Such roads are used predominantly by drivers who are familiar with them. Our road manual in its access management section states that a minor local road, commercial access is not permitted, and commercial access is defined as commercial or industrial use, excluding home-based businesses based on what the road manual's definition. Let's see, so staff has concern that permitting an operation of this caliber and this size on a minor local road would violate our roadway manual and our roadway standards, despite the traffic study that says it won't impact traffic. So we have some concerns there with that standard, and I know the applicant once again would like to address that as well. And so that would be another thing I would like the Planning Commission to consider as you're looking through this application. So I'll kind of skip through the rest of the report and just go to the conclusions and recommended findings. So staff has recommended a few conclusions. Number one is that has been reviewed by the Planning Commission. Number two, that the Planning Commission is the established land use authority authorized to act in this request. Number three is that the proposed minor extraction operation is not in compliance with the law as it does not meet the requirements of Chapter 1713 Mineral Extraction and Excavation. A review of the documents provided by the applicant showed that the proposed minor extraction operation area, including cut area, extraction pit, access, loading areas, fill areas, and leveling areas, exceed the maximum 5 acres allowed for the proposed use. The applicant has proposed to limit the hours of operation and will have a water truck active during operation and has made improvements to the access, though not specified what the improvements were, to help mitigate the impacts to neighbors. It is, as you've seen and heard, there has been a lot of complaints based off the operation, but it's the Planning Commission to decide whether or not that watering the pit and the access area and limiting the hours of operation and number of trucks, whether or not that would be reasonably mitigate the detrimental effects. And remember, once again, the state code is not necessarily to eliminate the detrimental effects, but to mitigate them, to reasonably mitigate them. We'd also, one of the other conclusions is that the proposed conditional use will result in a situation that creates a need for essential services that cannot be reasonably met by local service providers, including but not limited to roads and year-round access for emergency vehicles and residents. The proposed facility access to a substandard minor local road. Commercial businesses are not permitted on local minor roads, as previously stated. The traffic impact study is still being reviewed by Public Works. The applicant has, and number 6 is the applicant has not met the burden of proof, but the applicant meets the requirements. And number 7 is land use authority can deny the conditional use permit if it determines that the standards of the code cannot be met and that adequate mitigation measures cannot be imposed. And so staff recommended 3 findings with this application is that the proposed minor extraction operation area, including cut area, extraction pit access, loading areas, fill areas, and leveling areas exceeds the maximum 5 acres allowed by the proposed use per Cache County Code 171350B. The proposed facility access a substandard minor local road, i.e. Smithfield Canyon Road. Commercial businesses access is not permitted on minor local roads. Commercial business access requires a minimum major local road standard. And number 3, the area has inadequate roadways to service the application, and see letter from Smithfield City, attachment B and section F of this report. So as the Planning Commission is considering, if the applicant will respond to those, and if the Planning Commission feels that his response are adequate to meet the standards of the code and reasonably mitigate it, that is completely up to you. That's up to your review as well. But either way, whether approval or denial, staff would recommend that the Planning Commission adopt findings and make it clear why the application is being denied or approved. Likely this application is, as you can tell, a little hot. And so I just want to ensure that either way we go, that it is clear what the standards were that the Planning Commission reviewed and why the Planning Commission made its decision the way it did.
Okay, thanks, Stephen. Okay, would the applicant like to come up first?
If I may briefly approach the commission.
State your name first, just so we have it.
Certainly. My name is Wayman Stodart. I'm the agent for the applicant, Sean Cronquist. I represent Crazy R Longhorn Ranch. If I can approach the commission, I have a packet for each of you as part of our presentation.
I got it just right.
Thank you, commissioners, and I look forward to hearing public comment on this and hopefully being able to address some of the concerns that were raised both by staff and in public comment. I think that something that the commissioners mentioned earlier today is an important context and background for the application that's currently before you. Commissioner mentioned that if you want farmers to keep farmland, make it so that farmers can make money on their farmland. What you have in front of you is an application for an extraction relating to an agricultural operation. Mr. Cronquist, who is here on the front row, is a rancher. He's been a rancher. He's a lifelong resident of this property, and this has been property that's been in his family for his entire life. He's been constantly improving this property for the purposes of establishment of a Longhorn cattle business. If I can hook my laptop up to the projector really quickly, I would appreciate that. The other side, that's unfortunate. To jump ahead, because I'm sure the commission is well aware there's going to be a substantial amount of public comment, and I don't want to waste the commission's time. Mr. Cronquist is a well-recognized raiser of longhorns. He's won several awards for the longhorn he's been raising on this property at various conferences throughout the West. And he is a rancher first and foremost. In your packet, you have several documents, and I'm going to go over each one of them in turn as we go through. The first document in the packet is a correspondence from Smithfield City dated November of 2019. This was the first time there was an application heard on this issue, and it outlines the fact that Smithfield's roads are public and available for your use, and this is related, as you can see on the letter on the back, specifically to this application. So I'm not sure why Smithfield City has kind of done a 180 on this, but the nature of Smithfield City's roads are pretty well established. There is a major commercial commercial gravel pit just down 4th North from my client's property. I'm sure the commission is aware of that pit, and so if the roads are sufficient for that use, then the road is sufficient for my client's use, because it's on the same major road that would service this. Yes, it is. I put mirroring, so yeah, it doesn't look like it's gonna work, so I'll just step this aside. I appreciate the effort. Thank you. So as is well outlined in the staff report, as well as in our report, which is the third item in our packet, the duty of this commission is established by Utah Code annotated 1727A506-2A, which is that the land use authority shall approve a conditional use if reasonable conditions are proposed or can be imposed to mitigate the reasonably anticipated detrimental effects of the proposed use. So that's not permissive language, it's compulsory language, as I'm sure the commission is well aware. So as long as applicant can demonstrate that reasonable conditions are posed or can be imposed to mitigate the anticipated detrimental effects, approval is compulsory. While we appreciate the effort the staff has put into the application, we strongly disagree with their ultimate conclusions, which the staff broke down into 3 major areas. First, the staff recommends rejecting this application because the operation exceeds 5 acres. In the report, staff mentioned that by their calculations, the area is in excess of 5 acres, but I'm not aware of what calculation is being done there. The calculation presented to the commission is that we represented 4.97 acres, and that was the extraction area of the map, and that there must be more than that because of loading, unloading, and fill areas. But that doesn't really reflect the nature of what we're presenting to the commission. That 4.97 acres is the extraction area or the cut area. That's the total area that material is going to be extracted from for the operation. There are other parts of the parcel that material is going back in on. That's the fill area. So if the issue is just looking at material being pulled out of the extraction area, then that material is often going to go back into the fill area. Both of those are outlined on the engineering maps for the commission. In reality, the total area that's being dealt with here is more of 4.5 acres, including access, the staging area, parking area, loading and unloading. More importantly than necessarily specific measurements, that 5 acres is a cap under the statute, and it's also one of our proposed, I don't want to jump ahead, but at the very end of our staff report, we propose some examples of conditions that the applicant is proposing and would be happy to comply with in order to allow this project to go forward. One of those conditions is very well that the operation not exceed 5 acres. Applicant's position is that it does not, and it has not, and he does not plan for it to. He certified that previously to the commission, to the staff, and he's prepared to certify to that today. So if he can comply with that under 5 acre requirement, that issue is ameliorated. Second, and more confusingly from our perspective, under the road standards established by the county holds that applicant's operation must occur on a major road. But that is something of, and we appreciate the staff clarifying that. I attached the major road standards, that's the third document in your packet, in its entirety. Page 25 is the page on which the table that the staff referenced is located on. And page 25 defines commercial access and says commercial access is access to any commercial or industrial business. And the use of the term business is a term that I think was unfortunately skipped over, and it was instead characterized as a commercial or industrial activity. A commercial or industrial business is well established in the code. The commission just went over what a commercial parcel has on it. It's office space, space for employees, space for customers, restrooms, electrical, fire, those kind of things. That's what is intended by a commercial area, commercial business, commercial access, commercial zoning. Further, the statute goes on to say, however, residential farm access refers to any home, farm, structure, cabin, or other accessory structure. Minimum spacing includes all access point and roads intersections on both sides of the roadway. Here what you have is an entirely agricultural operation that has been agricultural since its inception. Mr. Cronquist has always ranched that land. During the entire ownership that Mr. Cronquist has had, it's never been a gravel pit. It's never been used for commercial gravel. It's always been for agriculture. It's the farmland that this commission is rightfully concerned about preserving in Cache County. Applicant is not operating a commercial or industrial business in Smithfield Canyon. None of the access requirements of a commercial or industrial business are reflected in Mr. Cronquist's operation. There's no need for customers, deliveries, or employees who are working at the operation, and there is no building for fire or electrical to access. The only access needs are the drivers who routinely visit Mr. Cronquist anyway. He's an employer. They go up there to have meetings on various topics, to do planning, etc. So it's the same people who are already accessing it. The only business application operating on that property is the agricultural operation, which is allowed on a minor roadway. Despite this, applicant is concerned with the impacts of his operation, so he retained a traffic engineer, both on his own initiative and at the request of this council, who provided an engineering traffic report, which is in your packet, which indicates that there is no major impact, nor any impact, negatively or positively, as a result of 20 truckloads a day. And that's an important number. 20 truckloads a day was the proposed number, not because applicant intends there to be 20 truckloads, but in order to give a threshold so he can say, I know that no matter what, on my busiest day, I will be below 20 truckloads. So his busiest day, if it was every single day of the year, has no impact on Smithfield Canyon. I don't know how we can say then that his average day, which is 7 loads per day, in the non-winter months, and to clarify at that point, during the winter months there are no loads. Because of the way applicant's property is and how steep it is, the trucks can't get up to the area of issue anyway, so there will be no loads during the winter months. So the average during the summer months only is 7 truckloads. The busiest day, if it happened every day, would have no impact on Smithfield Canyon. It's not a commercial operation. It doesn't have the same requirements, it doesn't have the same needs, and it doesn't have the same impacts. And so it doesn't require the same mitigation or a major roadway. Mr. Cronquist's formal traffic study should carry more weight than the definition in the road code, which doesn't apply to his operation because it's not a commercial business. As shown by the applicant, he complies with each of the requirements of 17.13.050, including the acreage requirement. Should the acreage be a concern of the commission, a reasonable restriction to mitigate that concern would be a condition that the operation be less than 5 acres. Applicant has already demonstrated there will be no road impacts, and the characterization of applicant's agricultural operation as a commercial operation does not negate that. I think the language of 17.13.050 is also important. As identified by staff, it delineates operations on this magnitude into 2 operations. 1, a commercial operation, and 2, a temporary or minor excavation, where one of the operations is defined in the code, plain language, as a commercial operation. The other one is not commercial. It would fall under the commercial operation standards. Now, while it's the position of applicant that there's no legal basis for the denial of Mr. Cronquist's application, he is sensitive to the concerns of the community. As I indicated, you will see there are several proposed restrictions that Mr. Cronquist is happy to abide by for the purposes of his application, as well as any other reasonable restrictions this commission sees fit to impose. Further, Mr. Cronquist has retained Jeff Darty, who I have the distinct pleasure of introducing, and I would like to speak to you next, for purposes of ensuring that the character of Smithfield Canyon remains unchanged for the temporary extraction. By way of introduction, Mr. Darty is a former resident of Hyde Park who graduated from Skyview. He attended Utah State University and frequently hunted, hiked, and camped in Smithfield Canyon, which he holds very dear. His credentials are extensive. He served as the Planning and Development Director for Salt Lake County, which is the largest jurisdiction handling land management in the state, and he supported 6 planning commissions, the Board of Adjustments, the Salt Lake County Mayor's Office, and the County Council. He led the county's efforts in developing the Rio Tinto 73,000-acre West Bench Plan, for which he and his team received 2 Utah Governor's Awards for quality growth. He served as the chair of the Bluffdale Planning Commission and supported the Utah legislature in strengthening Maludma and Cludma in the early 2000s, which are the very statutes that we ask you to approve this plan under. Despite his successes at the commercial level in Salt Lake County, in an effort to return to his rural roots, he has served as the Teton County Planning and Development Director, where he has overseen the most complex regulatory scheme in the United States, beyond even the regulatory scheme applicable to Martha's Vineyard. There he led the 2012 Teton County Jackson Comprehensive Plan and Land Development Regulations, which was also awarded Plan of the Year. While working in Teton, he learned to balance property rights with stewarding the largest intact ecosystem in the lower 48 states. His tasks included permitting property development while preserving wildlife habitat, movement corridors, and the vistas that make Teton what it is today for the 3.8 million visitors a year that visit it. He preserved that economy and has caused that economy, which is entirely reliant on tourism, to grow. His love for the rural character and culture, a character shared by Smithfield Canyon, was enhanced and cemented, and he prepared multiple comprehensive plan updates and land development regulation updates. Since that time, Mr. Daugherty has been engaged in advocacy, being a presenter at the Wyoming Bar Association on subjects like balancing property rights with jurisdictional community character objectives. He has also served as the Assistant Superintendent of Teton County School District and was responsible for the construction of new schools in, again, one of the most complex regulatory schemes in the nation. But I want to note that Mr. Daugherty is not here as a lobbyist for Mr. Cronquist. Mr. Daugherty has been brought on specifically to advise Mr. Cronquist in maintaining the character of Smithfield Canyon. Many of the recommendations and restrictions and conditions in your packet today are the result of Mr. Daugherty's work. Mr. Daugherty has gone over all the plans in extensive detail and has been given total independence to make whatever recommendations are necessary to preserve the character of Smithfield Canyon. Mr. Cronquist and Frazier Longhorn Ranch are doing the best they can to create the farmland that will last into perpetuity, or at least as long as he's on that land. If you want farmers to keep farmland, you've got to make it so they can make it farmland. And that's what Mr. Cronquist asks to do today. And with that, I'll turn the time over to Jeff Daugherty.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, Planning Director, thank you for the opportunity to address you tonight. I think Mr. Stoddard oversold me a little bit. I'm just a guy from Wyoming coming down to try to help an ag guy get a hay meadow. Mr. Chairman, if I could take just a couple of minutes, I think there's a little bit of misinformation that's been circulating out there, and I'd like to, for the benefit, since this planning stuff can be insider baseball for a lot of folks, I'd like to take just 1 minute, kind of go over the foundation of what zoning and land use is so that we can come back up to the 2 permits that are governing this project and the 1 permit that we're talking about tonight. I will do that very efficiently, Mr. Chair.
I'll give you 1 minute on that because I think we know what our job is.
You'll be glad to know I'm not lecturing you on your job. So, with that, Mr. Chairman, zoning exists to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the community. A few decades ago, the Supreme Court amended that regulatory scheme to allow community character to be a part of that consideration for bodies like this. These permits work together because you've got a comprehensive plan. It's an aspirational document, typically doesn't have the force of law. But in order to implement that vision document, what you do is you adopt land development regulations, and within your land development regulations, you have zones that are established and zoning tools that support those zones. Within your zones, you have 2 types of uses, permitted uses. Those are by right uses. Think of a single-family home in a single-family zoned area, or an ag use in an ag area. Don't need a permit to conduct those uses. And then you have conditional uses. These are uses that are also appropriate for the zones, provided that certain impacts that may be created by these somewhat more intense uses can be mitigated by virtue of certain conditions. So the role of public comment, Mr. Chairman, is to help this body, to help the applicant, and to help the staff understand what those impacts are. We can all sit around our offices and still miss vital pieces of information, and so we rely on the public to help us understand that information. Let's talk for just a second about the intent of a temporary extraction permit. So there are two permits that govern what Mr. Cronquist is doing on the property. And I appreciate and had a chance to speak with the planning director, and I really valued that conversation. But the grading permit and then the temporary extraction permit that's being sought here tonight, part of the activities that are occurring on his site are governed by the grading permit, right? The temporary extraction permit, as betrayed by the name, pertains explicitly to the extraction area and the extraction activities. And so that's why Mr. Stoddard is suggesting that Mr. Cronquist's activities are in compliance with your regulations. I also want to talk about the fact that this is not a commercial mining activity. There's been some information circulated that is saying that Mr. Cronquist is aspiring to engage in a commercial mining activity. Those require, as we've heard earlier tonight, different zoning, different requirements that are associated with that. This is not that. This is a temporary use, and a temporary use takes you from condition A to condition B. It's not in and of itself a use, if you will. So this is a temporary use, whereas a mining permit is permanent until the use is exhausted. This is for a finite period of time. The impacts are lower, the footprint is significantly smaller, and the impacts associated with are typically smaller as well. Typically, I would say that an applicant, your regulations would allow the applicant to sell the materials. Mr. Cronquist has agreed to not sell the materials associated with this extraction because he wants it to be clear that his aspiration is not to mine. His aspiration is simply to regrade an area to accommodate a pasture and agricultural uses. The reason Mr. Cronquist has to come through this permit process is because he exceeds the 1,500 cubic yards. And let's talk about that for just a second. So this permit is used for a lot of things in a lot of different communities around the country. I've used them to allow people to create ponds in their communities or on their lots. I've used them to allow ranchers to create ranch roads. I've used them to allow subdivisions to regrade so that they can sell a subdivision. I've used them to allow schools to export materials so that a school can go there. Likely that the temple in Smithfield may have one of these too and is using that to export materials. I don't think any of those people are in that business for the purpose of profiting, though they can by your regulation, but I don't think that's their intent. Their intent is to get to a future condition that allows them to do what they want to do. So I'm almost done, Mr. Chairman. So applicants will typically try to waste as much material on site as they can. Why? Because it costs money to move it. So Mr. Cronquist also has attempted to waste as much material in those other areas that are outside of the permit area that we're talking tonight so that he does not have to export those materials. As indicated by Mr. Stoddard, I was brought on to help the community, help address some community concerns. Sean has not given me any limitation as to what conditions I recommend to this body. I will tell you that's only happened twice in my career, so a little unique here tonight. So the impacts associated with this one are road safety. I recommended to him that he get a traffic study. When we looked at the initial traffic study, we felt like that we needed to be more conservative with the numbers, and so I asked the traffic engineer to go back and study the traffic counts on a day when we would have the highest traffic counts to make sure that this body and the staff have the benefit of us not checking traffic on Sunday morning, right? We're going to check it when we think the traffic counts are highest so that you can make an informed decision as to what you think the impacts are, and as you see from the report, they're none. The dust, I recommended that he include a water truck. You'll see a water truck in the application now. Trucking, I recommended that Sean not allow anyone other than his drivers to export material. Why? The reason why is he has full supervisory control over his employees. He can demand that they are faithful to the speed limits and respectful to the neighbors. That's why I've recommended he not allow other providers. I also recommended that he have no more than 20 trips per day. If this board thinks it necessary, we're happy to have a conversation about what that upper threshold should look like. Also, I recommended the 5 acres. I also recommended the hours of operation because I wanted the peaceful enjoyment for the neighbors around him of their property, and I didn't want them to have to listen to cats and to large dump trucks over the 4th of July, Thanksgiving, those sorts of things. So he's trying to preserve and protect the character of his community. Mr. Chairman, I've also heard tonight that perhaps it would be wise to consider a 6-month reclamation within there. I think your regulations say a year, but I think that Mr. Cronquist would be amenable to a 6-month reclamation because he wants to get back as quickly as he can to the livestock uses associated with that. So, Mr. Chairman, I have a couple other thoughts, but I'm going to leave it at that just in the interest of time, and I'm happy to, actually, I'll let Mr. Cronquist speak, and then I'm happy to come back and answer any questions you may have.
Okay, if we have some for you, we'll call you up. Thank you.
Members of the commission, I'm Sean Cronquist. And the most important thing I need to tell you is I am a rancher. That's what I am. I'm not a great public speaker, so I forgive for, I'm reading this off of a prepared speech. So I'm not great at this. I want to start by thanking Jeff. When I first went to Jeff, I was a bit upset. I didn't understand why there was so much pushback in a small part of something as big as our Longhorn Ranch. Jeff helped me understand that there was real valid concerns that we need to address to conserve the traditional nature of the community and preserve the beauty of Smithville Canyon. I don't ever want to damage anyone's property. And so I thank Jeff for providing the oversight necessary to ensure the character of Smithville Canyon. I've been a rancher at Smithville Canyon for 3 generations. Our operation is becoming present throughout the Longhorn industry, and we've been lucky to go to several sales throughout the whole country. I was privileged to have strong parents who raised me right. I grew up hard. Nothing has been easy for me, but looking back, I really wouldn't have changed it any other way. Throughout all that, I knew what I wanted to create my own life, a little piece of paradise for myself and my family. And I wanted to be in Smithville Canyon on the property I was raised on. I wanted it so much, I invested in more property, and that's where this is. I bought that. While ranching is hard, as everybody knows, there are moments that make it worth it. Bringing my grandkids to see the calves in the spring, teaching my daughter to ride a horse, seeing the growth of the Longhorns to the point of national recognition. Each of these have helped to convince me I've created something special and that I have an opportunity to create a legacy for my family that will outlive me. And I've seen the legacy be shrunk throughout Cache County. Numerous developments have eaten up former ranches, and often my landscape company is involved in helping that with the development of that. I can tell you with no small degree of certainty that is not something I want. I want to create an agricultural meadow to raise my longhorns and horses. I want to create a place where my children can raise their children, and so on. I don't want a gravel pit, and it's clear as an excavator, even if I did, the soil on my property is useless to the market. This is why I've had to bring in topsoil around the whole property as well. This extraction is such a small part of that, but somehow this tiny thing has become the wall between my future that I want. I'm trying to do right. When I went before the Land Use Appeals Authority, he told me the CUP was the proper way to protect the neighboring landowners. And I was happy to do so. I've asked the planning department to tell me what they need me to do, but they keep saying no. I don't understand, my project isn't commercial, I'm giving the material away, my company isn't benefiting from this. My guys are just the only guys that I trust to do the things right. I'm using them guys to bring it out. I hope the commission will see the vision I'm trying to create. This is my family land and my name and my legacy. And I want to leave this land better than I found it. Thanks.
Okay, before we open it up for public comment, do any of the commissioners have any follow-up questions for any of the three?
I've got, Sean? I guess in my mind, it's pretty simple. How long do you think, you said temporary extraction, how long do you think it's gonna be that you'll still be running dump trucks in and out?
We should be done, I mean, we shouldn't take more than 3 years. I mean, I'm assuming if we can get this one part, the lower part out, most of the part on the north side is gonna go out through to the other areas. Because that whole area is a very steep slope. And there's nothing there, it's just.
Off to, and then leveling, and then we.
Moving a lot of the material that's in that area onto the north side. It's a steep slope, the water runs off, I can't do anything with it.
So the number of trucks a day, could be all over the place. It's just when you've got time, if you've got another business you're running.
Yes.
That when you've got time, you'll be up there with trucks.
Yes, we'll be pulling it out. And that is when we can find places to take it too. I mean, like.
And are we talking 18-wheelers? Are we talking side dumps or?
18-wheeler and a side dump. That's all we have.
No,
nothing
no
wrong.
pups?
We have a pup on the dump truck, but no pups on the side dump. I do have pups, but I'm not gonna run a pup up that road. Yeah, it's just too long.
And so the traffic study, indicated not that much traffic, but that's at what point, where do you start intersecting? I drove up there, it's been a month, well, right after your last time here. As you come down the canyon, where you really start to intersect more traffic.
There's a few corners down below when we drop onto the road.
Yeah.
But then once that's done, it goes up over the hill on Fourth North down by Parsons. I mean,
yeah, then you come up by
Then we
Parsons.
come out by Parsons, so there's not that much road. There's like less than, I think there's a mile or less of the canyon road. And everything is gonna be covered up and redone. So, and possibly irrigated in certain spots.
So if I was gonna say, I can see, because I got a lot of, down where I live, I've got semis flying by me now, side dumps, and have done for pretty heavy for the last year or so. And so the side dumps are a little scarier to the traffic population as opposed to an 18-wheeler.
Well, actually, the side dumps are a little easier because they're narrower and they're higher. So the wheelbases are actually in further than the dump trucks. So if you notice when you're driving.
Yeah, I guess that's really true.
Because when the dump truck's as wide as it's gonna be.
Yeah.
I
guess it's the length.
So the legal
It looks
limit,
like
right?
a bigger.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're probably seeing bigger ones. I'm running one with 3 axles on the back. You might be seeing the 5-axle side dumps.
Yeah, they're mostly 3s, but anyway, it's rough.
Pretty big.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's getting to be a lot of them in town with all the construction.
How many yards of fill do you think you've hauled out of there already?
I don't even know. Maybe 5 to 10,000 maybe of yards.
And I just did a rough calculation off what the first guy, I can't remember his name, said for if you were running 7 trucks a day during the summer months, not winter months, not weekends, not holidays, for the requested 5 years, which is in the request right now. So even 3, if we cut it down, that would be about an additional 25,000.
I think there's probably close to what our engineer figured out when we did that, there was about 20,000 on this side. But there's gonna be what we haul, there's gonna be a tremendous more amount that goes into the field.
So what do you estimate your cost has been and will be in moving that much ground, that much material to gain 5 acres of marginal cropland? If you can get water to it.
It's not necessarily marginal cropland. I mean, it's not really a crop, it's more of a pasture.
Right.
It's more so you can use it.
Right. That's what I'm saying. How many
It's probably gonna cost me hundreds of thousands. I mean, by the time I put all my troughs and everything else in, I've already spent that much. But it's what I wanna do. It's not because I'm not making money on this.
I was
It's
just
costing me a lot.
wondering what you've put into it for that.
But what else do I do? I mean, sell it to somebody like everybody else and try and develop it? I mean, I wanna keep that because I wanna be there, you know?
How big is the whole parcel, Connor?
That parcel's probably around 80.
It is.
My other parcel's around another 90 something.
6.16.
So I'm 100 and something acres. I mean, where are you gonna replace that? Move to Wyoming? I mean, yeah, I mean.
Right, yeah, well, we're just focusing on the 5, the rest of the 80 is already flat enough.
No, it's not flat. It's, this area wasn't necessarily just because it was a steep knoll with rocks and, I mean, big rocks, little rocks, I mean, all kinds of clay. So if I can take it out and get it to where I can use it, it's just gonna help our whole situation.
In this traffic study, and this might be for whoever did that, was done on April 12th was the date. Why was, to me, that seems like on that road anyways, still the non-busy time of year. I would think June, July, and August, when the canyon, right, April, you can't get up on the mountain up Smithfield Canyon yet. There's too much snow, so I would think
Well, you can still get up
a
there.
better traffic study would be when the roads, it's more busy time.
Yeah, we didn't pick that because of any reason.
Yeah, that's why I just wondered why it was
Yeah,
done.
it was just after,
April
when
12th.
we talked to these guys and everybody, you know, that's there was no specific date.
Yeah, it was probably just the homeowners that lived there for the most part.
Yeah.
That time of year.
Yeah, probably, I don't know. There's quite a few people go up there. I mean, we run
Sometimes
cattle in.
that's why I thought that traffic study looked really low from days I've driven up that road anyways, but it just depends on the day. Some days it's busy, some days it's not.
We run cattle at Birch and there's quite a few people going up and down there.
Yeah, yep.
So,
Okay, any other questions for these three?
Maybe just a point of clarification. This might be for Wayman or the applicant. So essentially, the argument is that for the access, because it's not a commercial business, it doesn't have to comply with the commercial standard. However, within the code itself, so this is in 171350B for the temporary mineral or minor extraction operation less than 5 acres, it states, and I quote, "These operations shall be allowed in any zone of the county as conditional use. These operations will have to operate under the same standards as a commercial operation." So.
Certainly, so I can speak to that. Again, that's where the important language in the road standard applies. So the commercial operation language is the specific language that talks about a commercial operation under 17.13.050A, which defines a commercial operation as any operation of this type greater than 5 acres. And then it gives constraints as far as signage, fencing, the location of graders, storage of explosives, everything like that. What it doesn't say is it doesn't say as a commercial business, which is the language that's used in a different standard, the road standard, that's incorporated by reference in an entirely different provision, which is the access provision, which isn't under Section 17. So I understand that there may be some linguistic confusion, but the words have meaning. And the meaning here is a commercial business or commercial access is defined in the code, or rather in this traffic standard, as a commercial business, which includes employees, office space, etc. Whereas commercial operation is a very specific term that's under 17.13.050A that deals with things like signage and dust and ingress, egress, and everything else like that. And so that's why I thought it was very important that the commission have the full, unredacted, uncut text of the road standards, because that distinction is more clear when you look at those two documents side by side.
So we're gonna open this up to public comment. If you've sent a letter in, we have read those multiple times. If you have additional stuff you'd like to say, we're happy to hear anything additional. If you haven't sent a letter in, come on up too. Give us your comment, and we'll try to keep it to 3 minutes per comment. If something's really critical and we need to ask you questions, we can go over that. make sure you state your name, and we'll go that way for a little bit.
Sorry to jump in, Fred. I just got to get to hospital. I just took a couple notes here real quick. I'll be fast on time. I'm a neighbor to this parcel. My name's Chase Peterson. I think I might be one of the few that actually shares a direct property line with Sean and Crazy R here. So I just wanted to come and comment. I found it to be very difficult as a landowner in Cache County. I think that the comments about substandard roads is really irritating as a landowner. That it's a responsibility of the county to keep its own roads up to standard and not to restrict the use of landowners because they're being negligent in keeping the roads up to standard. So that bothers me personally as a landowner. And I don't think that should be used against Sean or anyone else that's trying to enjoy full use of their property. It feels concerning to have the commission comment on how worthy the use is that Sean's going to try and do with this, how substandard the property is. That feels inappropriate, just as a landowner. I don't look at your parcel and say, well, you have good land, so that's worth protecting. You have shit land, that's not worth protecting. So let's not do that. Other things is I think that as neighbors in these locations, it's just really important to like think of each other in like two ways, right? Like we think of each other as like, what would I like to have the rights of my own property protected as? That's what I think about myself as landowner and as a neighbor. If I want to do something that's really meaningful to me on my agricultural land to help to improve its use, to make it more beautiful and functional for me, I would like the opportunity to do that. As my neighbors, I think they also have a right to make sure that what I'm doing on mine doesn't mess too much with theirs. And I'm doing everything possible to try and mitigate that. And it sounds like there's stuff to do that. And I hope that it's complete. I didn't hear all of it. But if it has to do with like noise and dust and traffic and all those sorts of things, I think that's what matters a lot to us. So that's the stuff that matters to me as landowners. I feel like if those things are taken care of, then we should be able to enjoy the full rights that that when I bought my property up there that I paid for when I got that. That I was purchasing that property, understanding that I would have the right to use it the way I choose within the code of what it is, which is ag. And that sounds like that's what he's trying to do. So I just hope that we can kind of respect that for each other and create a situation. And then also, it sounds like Crazy R has like a real, I don't know if it's a responsibility or at least just like a neighborly kind of, I don't know, contract to try and take care of each other. And at least from what it sounds like, there's been efforts made to do that. So for those reasons, as the closest neighbor and as the one that probably is the only one who actually be able to see this, if you look at the topo map, I'm the only one who can look over there. Like I'm in support because I'm in support of landowner rights. And I'm somebody who runs up and down that canyon plenty. I'm a runner and I would be comfortable doing that. I see like the limited trucks that have come up through and they don't scare me nearly as much as like the dump trucks or the garbage trucks that are come up and down, or even the buses. That it's nice if people like commercial operations often like really restrict their employees. And that would be my expectation of anybody doing that. And I would hope that that's the case to keep my family safe and to keep everybody else safe on the road. And if that can happen, I think the landowners should be able to enjoy their rights. That's all I got. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Shauna Twitchell. I live a little bit further up the canyon than where Sean has his permit, his pet. So this has been going on for 25 years, 25. This isn't something like what they just got up and said that Sean has never took gravel out. He's never done this. My brother, I have everything in here from a lawsuit from Lyle Hilliard and Judge Cannell. That was my brother Terry's attorneys to get them stopped. This has been going on since the 90s. Load after load after load after load, illegal. And it's wrong. Like, I'm sorry, I'm shaking, but like 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, when Chris worked for the county, okay, Sean gives this away. We have a huge pit up there that needs to be filled in. It's only 300 feet from where why doesn't he just fill in our, instead of paying these hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars? I mean, when he went and got a loafing shed permit, he was allowed to take out 1,500 cubic yards or whatever it is. Okay, you know where Cycle and Sleds is, right? Load after load, hundreds of loads went to Cycles and Sleds, a new building. I called Chris, I came and got Chris. Chris finally went out there and looked at it and shut him down. After he had hauled so many hundreds of loads, and then he had a roller out there, rolled them, and put more loads on top. You could go count them everywhere he had dropped a load, everywhere. I have followed him. I know what he does. And it's wrong. My granddaughter rides that school bus. She rides the school bus to school. She's on it twice a day. His trucks are 8.5 feet wide and 70 feet long. On a canyon road that has tight corners. My kids have almost been hit. If he passes a school bus right now, there is a drop-off. It's a complete drop-off into the creek. And I have a picture of it if you want to see it. The county did come up and they tried to fix it, but it's going to take some extensive work to fix that. It's on a blind corner. They did drop rocks down in it to try and keep it from washing out more. But you can see where that is cracked, that it just keeps cracking further into the road. He puts those heavy gravel trucks on that, and it's going to end up going. It's not feasible. I mean, I can barely pass him in my car, and I have a smaller SUV. You know, something's going to happen, and we're going to have a terrible, terrible accident. But anyway, I mean, those are like, they carry like 30 ton. That's about how much his double weighs when he's full. And he's going down. If you guys have drove up the canyon, you know it's going downhill. I mean, I rode a bike up it, and I can barely make it up it, but you can sure go down it fast. I mean, it takes, I looked it up, and it said that it's like 40 times or 40% longer for a truck to stop like that than a car. He wouldn't be able to stop if he went around a corner and that school bus was there. There's no way. There's nowhere for him to go. And whoever did this road review thing, whoever did that, I mean, I didn't see anything.
30 seconds left.
Okay. Well, I just really don't know what to do. I mean, he was shut down in 2000 by the courts through a lawsuit. And if he's really giving this stuff away, then why doesn't he just put it in our pit? I mean, before any of this was started, my dad bought that ground in 1950. Robert ran cows on that his whole life, so did my dad. It's worse right now with what he's done to it, steeper in places than it ever was before. It was rolling hills.
Thank you. Come on up.
I will keep it brief, gentlemen.
My name is Kathleen Caples. My property is on Smithfield Canyon Road, and there are two things that I did not see in the materials that came before the commission. One was a letter from the Utah Division of Water Rights that said, for the parcel, a complaint was made to them, and attached to it was the application from Mr. Cronquist to the council for this particular operation. They looked into it from the letter that I did bring in to the office, but I didn't see it in the public comment materials. I can show you the letter here. I quote, "The Division of Water Rights recognizes that the water rights on the properties that are involved here are authorized for the beneficial use of irrigation and equivalent direct domestic uses as described in Table 1 below. And in the irrigated acreage, it is 6.8675 acres is all he has the water right to do." The other information from the Smithfield North Bench Ditch Company that takes water from Summit Creek and what used to be the Stillwater Farm property, and pipes it to a farm on the top of a pond on top of the hill. And then that's the source of water for the Smithfield North Bench Ditch Company. Sean Cronquist does not have any water shares And this was by the director of the Smithfield North Bench that I spoke with. And he is currently renting shares from Travis Mickle to irrigate pastures north of Evelyn Mickle's home and west of the Mickle barn to raise longhorn cattle on land that is owned by the Mickle Land Limited Property. I would like to suggest if he's claiming agricultural use, doesn't look like he's got a lot of water to either irrigate or water stock. Third thing is that does the traffic study count the number of pedestrians, bicyclists, people pushing baby carriages, or are they just looking at cars? Because there's a lot of other use that is non-motor vehicle, or an electric bike if you want to call it a motor vehicle. But there are a lot of things that are not cars, SUVs, vans, or pickup trucks. And also, where Smithfield Upper Canyon Road goes into Smithfield Canyon Road, which is where his trucks have been going, it's an 11% grade, and all of the trucks that used to be Birch Creek Landscaping, and I believe had a different name in the land use hearing, their brakes shriek every time they come to that stop sign at the bottom of that 11% grade. And once a school bus almost was hit because the truck had a very hard time. I look out over that property, so that is something that's of great concern to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Bobby Danzy. Sean Cronquist lives right above me. For him to bring his trucks down that driveway, 30% grade, if not more, right at my house. They've lost their cattle truck, it hit the back of my house. No damages covered. They wiped out my fence, my horse fence. My horse was in there, what if he hit my horse? These are things that can't be avoided because accidents happen, right? The dust in my house, the screeching brakes, the beeping, I went through all that when I was going through chemo, it damn near killed me. Me and my kids have been to the doctor nonstop, sinus infections. Guess what? He hasn't been hauling. We haven't been to the doctor. These are all problems that is created from the gravel and the dust. You know, if it was your house, you would think a lot differently. I have 2 kids that drive that road. One, his driver almost hit head on, right around the corner from my house. I stood up on my lawnmower to video it to show all the dust flying off of the truck. You couldn't even see around the corner. Well, little did I know, my daughter drove through that dust pile. These are, like, for him, time is money. He has taken time out of our lives to sit here and deal with this. Like, this is 4 years of him going to court hearing and us having to show up for these. That's time I could be spending with my kids. They haven't been able to have outside birthday parties. We started one, and the swimming pool was full of mud. I mean, I can't grill outside. I'm sure you guys have all got the pictures. I wrote grill on my grill when I'm trying to sit out there and smoke fish. And he commented on Facebook and said, I do have a permit. No, he didn't have a permit to haul load after load after load. If you guys give him this permit, you're not only putting my house, my property, my family in danger, you're looking at a huge lawsuit because somebody will get killed on that canyon road. And I hope it's not my family, and I hope y'all can live with it, because I can't. We've already had the Josh fatality. I talked to the cops Thursday and told them there was going to be a fatality in the canyon if they did not slow down the traffic. Wednesday night, there was a car in the river. I mean, given his drivers are damn good drivers. They drive slow, but there is so much dust. There's so much squeaking of the brakes. I can't even sit on my couch and watch a movie because all I hear is his trucks. I mean, this is affecting my life, my family, my kids, and it's going to affect everybody in the entire canyon. You know, it showed that it was a closed meeting, that there wouldn't be no public speaking. There was so many people in the canyon that wanted to come and tell you how they felt about it. There's little kids on motorcycles on that Upper Canyon Road. They pull right out in front of you. They don't stop at the stop sign. These are 10, 12-year-old kids. Do you want that on your hands if one of them get killed? Because when I asked Sean that, do you know what he told me? This was at the very beginning. Do you know what he told me? I'm not the one that told him to go out there. That is his words, his quote. You know, you guys got to look at it from our perspective. We're the one that's going to run to whoever's in the river because we drive that canyon several times a day. We're probably going to be the ones that find whoever it is that gets killed by those trucks. You really need to sit and think about it. How about you travel that canyon? Because when that was taken, you need to put it right at the bottom of the hill so you get traffic going up and down, because some people go up the low road and come down the high road. There is so much traffic in that canyon. You know, they say they don't want no more houses up there because the road can't handle any more traffic, but you want to allow 40 more trips a day from a semi truck? It's just crazy. It blows my mind. And if you guys seen what it done to my house, you'd understand. My furnace filters are $100 a piece. I don't see him being a good neighbor and giving me money to replace them or having somebody come and clean my house daily. I mean, it's all through my house. We barely got it out from his dad, and now he's doing it? They were stopped. There's paperwork. I don't know why you guys don't have it.
We do, we have all that too, but your 3 minutes is up.
Okay, I appreciate you guys listening to
Your
me.
comments. Anyone else? Oh, we got
All right. I appreciate you guys being able to listen to comments today. I wrote mine down so I wouldn't go off on tangents for you, all right?
Say your name first. just
My
so
name
we
is
have it.
Dan. I live in Smithfield. I live by the Smithfield LDS Temple. Since it began construction, I would see and hear upwards of 30 to 40 trucks an hour at times. If any of you have been out there, you've seen those trucks. They drive through my neighborhood, past my child's elementary school, and directly in front of my home. These trucks deliver and haul many loads of dirt, metal structures, cement, stone, etc., to and from the temple site. So forgive me for being a little frustrated at the impact the temple construction has on the serenity and character of my neighborhood and community. But then it occurred to me that these impacts from its construction are temporary. I can tolerate temporary. And if I can tolerate the temporary large-scale impacts from this, I can easily tolerate the temporary and much more minor proposed few trucks a day with Mr. Cronquist. Ranching application. Both have temporary impacts. Both are not commercial. Both will enhance the community's character in different ways. Let Mr. Cronquist move some dirt. Let him better his property, his cattle, keep an open range area, and better his community. As a citizen of Smithfield and Cache County, I have no issue with the proposed removal of dirt. I urge you to support this application.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One more, sorry.
That's what we're here for.
Hey, my name is Jen Johnson. I live right on Upper Canyon Road. So I have children. I have, my son is one of those motorcyclists that probably does not look and pulls right out. I guarantee it. But okay, I gotta read, otherwise I'll just keep racking. I live at the mouth of Smithfield Canyon. I love this place for the beautiful views, the very present wildlife. I like to hike Smithfield Canyon. I also run it and bike it. So I'm aware of how narrow and rocky the road can be. A few months ago, I received a flyer that said a gravel pit was opening less than a mile from my home. It's about a mile from my home is where this is. I also saw the social media posts saying the same. That made me very concerned. So I decided to do my own research. I actually went and approached Sean Cronquist and asked him to explain things to me. He did. Sean explained his whole project. We walked around. He walked me around his property, showed me some things. I saw his very pretty steers. And as I drove away, I was frustrated. mostly frustrated or completely frustrated that it was very misrepresented. I thought his project on his own ag land was very reasonable, and I see him grading a pasture. He has material that he needs to haul off, no different than the temple that was just talked of. There's no commercial use here. There was no gravel pit, and I believe that Sean's endgame is going to add to the character of our community. I am all for property ownership and what you should be allowed to do on your own property, and I really have no issues with Sean's proposal. So, thank you.
Anyone else want to comment? We've got a couple more.
My name is Todd Orm, a Smithfield resident, and I certainly fully believe in a property owner's rights. My concerns are expressly for you to look at and just make sure that what is being done meets in with some of the concerns. I believe in being able to do what is desired to do with land, but it needs to be able to be done legally and without negatively impacting the rest of the citizens of the county, and in this case also the city of Smithfield. My concerns are, it has been expressed that this is temporary. I was originally hearing 6 months, I'm now hearing 3 years. Obviously temporary can be reapplied. So I'm a concern of how temporary, how limited is the temporary. So please consider that. I'm also a little bit concerned about the fact that while it has been estimated 7 loads per day, the request is being made for 20 loads per day maximum, which is a 286% increase over the average before there is any potential restriction. That's a great size of difference between that. So that really needs to be looked at also. Also, there was no original, at least I hadn't seen any discussion of truck sizes. I have since heard the discussion of truck sizes. Coming from 3 and 4 generations of ranching, myself and my family in Idaho, I understand what the weights of those trucks are. The sizes that have been described, I know what weight can be put into those trucks. And while I do not have in front of me the maximum load capacities, the maximum road capacities on the minor road for Smithfield there that is coming down through, I would request that you look very carefully at that, because I can almost guarantee you that a side dump or even semi-load, if it is loaded anywhere near, is going to well exceed those weights without an ability to be able to find out what that weight is. If there is a scale and a system up there for that to be able to be weighed so that it is assured that we don't exceed those weights, then I would like to know that. But if that does not exist, then that is another problem, is that you've got weights that could very easily exceed what the road capability is going to be, and any damage that happens to that road is obviously going to impact all of Smithfield and all of the city that would be there. Another concern with that is that some of the roadway that will be used would obviously have to come into Smithfield city limits. Smithfield City Code does eliminate the use of or reject the use of Jake brakes within within any of the city boundaries. And if Jake brakes are basically eliminated or are restricted to where they cannot be used, that is going to be another substantial inability for a vehicle to be able to stop in the period of time that it needs to be able to stop and still stay in compliance with what the city regulations are. Particularly the larger the vehicles get, the more that that's going to be. So I think all of those are certainly concerns that I have concerns with. Again, they are my concerns. I have no problem with whatever he wants to do with the land if it can be done without negatively impacting the lifestyle and the quality of life for the rest of the city. But if those items impact that negatively or put a financial impact on the rest of the city to be able to mitigate the damages that can be caused by that, then it becomes a concern for the rest of the city as well. It needs to be taken into very consideration. And obviously outside the city, it's going to impact the county and the costs to the county to be able to mitigate and do those repairs that would take place. So I simply ask you to make sure that all of those are in line and consider those. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I about got to go. If we're going to be done by 8, are we going to keep going, or are we going to?
Well, we've still got another item on the agenda, so we'll be going past 8. If you gotta go, you gotta go, though.
Oh, you gotta go?
Yeah, we still got a quorum.
Yeah, my name's John Wynn. I own property right on Canyon Road, right where they're talking about going down Canyon Road. I've been a landowner in Smithfield for over 40 years along Canyon Road. I have absolutely no problem with someone trying to get the benefit out of their property, extracting gravel or whatever it be, So he has rights to do that, I feel. But the way that they're bringing the gravel down Smithfield Canyon Road, I've lived up there, and I was born and raised in Smithfield, and I've gone up and down that canyon I'm 72 years old, for 72 years, and that road with the bikers and the joggers and the people that walk up and down that canyon, we've been scared to death for years about somebody getting killed up and down there. And the road is just so narrow. It's too bad they can't find a road maybe further north, back in along the farmland, to bring that and bring it out north of all the homes and all the residents there. There's kids up and down that Upper Canyon Road now. They're all over the place. Bikers, kids on bicycles. My grandkids go across that road all the time, that new Upper Canyon Road. So I don't fault Sean for wanting to do that. Cronquests are great people. They just are. And I just don't think that road's proper enough, as narrow as it is. And the greenery and the shrubbery around the road, when I pull out of my driveway, I have to look both ways, up and down the canyon, to not get hit by a car. And we saw a kid get killed up Smithfield Canyon a couple of weeks ago on a motorbike. Someone was just pulling out of their road and hit that motorcycle. The road is just not made for that kind of stuff. It really is not. So that's all I got to say.
Thank you.
My name is Cody Zahner. I also live on Canyon Road down by Mack Park, and I'm also the engineer that ran the traffic study. I guess I should say EIT that ran the traffic study. To begin, I just wanted to say that I have 5 kids, little kids, and I'm not too concerned about trying to restrict roads for other landowners, because I try to make sure that my kids don't go out in the roads. And I just wanted to say that I'm fully, of course, totally fine with these trucks going down that road. As for the traffic study, I wanted to talk about it for a second. To comment on Smithfield City's letter that was sent. So an average road is built to 18,000 ESALs, which is 18,000 pounds per axle on a truck. So for example, I heard 30,000 pounds get put out there. That would mean on a two-axle truck, that still meets the limits of what classic normal roads are built to. If If you actually look at the Smithfield City design standards for a road, they are designed to handle 5% trucks, all the roads in Smithfield City. So to give you an idea of that, when you design based on a traffic study, every house is 10 cars a day. That's what you count, even though we all realize most houses aren't going to have 10 cars. Some houses might have way more than, it depends on how many kids you have running back and forth. So to give you an idea on that, just one of those subdivisions on that road in Smithfield, just 20 trucks is easily under that 5% of the design standards of Smithfield City. As for when the time of the traffic study was completed, it was mainly completed at that time to fulfill the response time that the county wanted, as well as we find that during school tends to drive up the amount of cars. Now we realize that in the canyon, yes, you do have that recreational side of things. What I actually like to do, especially on such a low volume road, because this is a heavily low volume road, I like to quadruple my numbers sometimes just to see what happens. And even quadrupling my numbers that I counted from those traffic counts, quadrupling and quintupling, and this is vehicles per hour. So we're talking upwards of 50 cars per hour, which Smithfield Canyon Road does not hit that. We are still sitting in LOS, which is level of service of A. A road does not fail until you technically hit F. D is when we should really do something about it. To give you an idea, Main Street sits at an LOS of C for the most of the valley for UDOT. So even with quintupling my numbers, we're still sitting at a level of service of A on that road. So I just wanted to give you guys that. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Shelley Ballantyne. I'm a Cronquist. Harry's my dad. I just feel like this is a huge safety hazard for everybody that travels that road. Sean's drivers are considerate, but when they pull out to enter that road on the Canyon Road, they take up both lanes, and most of the time their front end is in the bar pit. 2 times that I have seen when I've been at my dad's, a car coming down, you can't see that good coming down or going up. A car had to come to a complete screeching stop right in front of my dad's fence while we were outside. Another time, they're pulling off the road, the driveway to get on the road. That's a blind corner below their house, my sister's house. Right around the corner was almost a head-on right there. I mean, it's too much traffic for that road. It's a huge safety hazard. And if there's a fatality, chances are it's going to be someone in our family. I think it's just too huge of a safety concern. Someone get killed 2 weeks ago, a car coming down there so fast, they ended up in the creek. It's just, the road is not built for that. That Canyon Road is built for sightseeing, seeing wildlife. I'm strongly against it. 2 years ago, my son had picked up his daughter from kindergarten, was going up the canyon to see my dad, coming down off the high road. Here comes one of Sean's trucks right up. If my boy wouldn't have been paying attention, that would have been it. I mean, his tire was all the way over to the end. He was so shaken up, he called me, and I'm like, you know, we've been trying to shut it down, but it just isn't happening. I mean, if he could go out another way, that'd be great. But it's just, that road's not built for that. I'm strongly against it. Thanks for listening, guys.
Thank you. Any other comments? Do you have something really major new? Because you already did have a chance once.
Yes.
You've got 30 seconds this time.
We talk about the rights of a property owner, but when what he does impacts the value of a lot of other people's property, that also should be taken into consideration.
Thank you.
We're at 8 o'clock.
Oh, man, we've got to take 1 second. We've got to extend our meeting time,
Sounds fine.
knowing that we've got for sure one item, and that's if we drop 2 others off later.
That item's going to take.
We could cut the other ones off if we need to, but,
Yeah, and then it's,
15 minutes?
well,
I'm not sure how much longer this item will take.
I was gonna say 15, you're an optimistic man. Wow, we're only on
I'll
number
make a
4.
motion, we extend the meeting 30 minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi, my name's Carolee Stokes. I'm a resident of Smithfield. I don't live up the canyon, but I'm a longtime resident. And I'm going to kind of repeat what a lot of people that aren't for this, I'm going to say, is that road is not meant for this. And I'm sorry that, you know, all we hear about is people with land can do whatever they want, you know, it doesn't matter. But, you know, it does matter. Yes, I have a house and a quarter acre in a neighborhood, and there are certain rights I don't have for, you know, what I want to do. When my boy was little, he wanted a horse, but it wasn't allowed in Smithfield to have a horse in my backyard. And, you know, you just don't get to do whatever you want. There are rules, and the safety and everything of you follow as a landowner. And that road is not meant for big trucks to go down. And like everybody said, there are kids, bicycle joggers, riders, side-by-sides, people going up to just sightsee. I mean, it is not meant for this. And lots of fancy talk here, what I heard, lots of fancy talk. And I, you know, it's quite something, all the fancy talk we've been hearing all night. But you guys, you gotta make this right. And this has been going on a long time, and this just needs to stop, where people have got to stop having to worry about this. And there was a fatality of a young man. I know the family really well. And it was so sad. And that's what that canyon can bring. And there'll be more things that'll happen. And you know who will be liable? The county and Smithfield. And we just can't, it's just not safe up there for this kind of thing. And you don't want any more injuries or fatalities that this family went through in Smithfield when this happened. And I know it's been a long night, and I'm sorry, but please don't go for this, please. And thank you so much. Thank you.
Wait till you get up here so we can get you on record, or it doesn't count.
Sir, good to see you, my friend. You bet.
My name's Terry Cronquist, and I live up the canyon there. And there's nothing wrong with Sean's drivers, and there's nothing wrong with Sean doing what he wants to do with his property. The whole thing is he's got to take it another way. And there's other ways, but he don't want to pay. So you might take that into consideration. It's just the easiest route out. It's all downhill after he's loaded. And I'll leave you a little laugh. Me and this guy and that guy, 30 years ago, we rolled over and tore your fence out and lit your bush. In a sports car.
Please strike that from the record.
I kind of like to believe this.
Who was driving?
You also get only 30 seconds for your second time.
This is my first time for this.
This one. Okay, that's right. All right.
Travis
It's
Nielsen.
been a long night.
So, again, Terry just spoke to go another way and pay for it, right? The other way that he would have to pay for it would take Sean's trucks through his property, so he'd have to pay Terry. They'd take him through Lyle Kim's property. He'd have to pay Kim. Then it would take him through Mickle's property. He would have to pay Mickle. He has access to the road. He can get to the road. One of the residents up there said that that would be fine as long as Sean was willing to pay them or pay for their filters. But even prior to the filters, they wouldn't have had a problem with it if he would have just wrote them a check. And I am for this. I am for property rights. I think that what he is doing up there is going to benefit tremendously. I feed with him up there in the winter. And where we have to feed, you have to point it straight downhill. If you get sideways, you hit a rock, it's going to be a bad deal. This is going to give us a level area to where we can go out, we can feed off the back of the truck on a level ground, and then be safe. There is a lot of cows up there, and they do eat a lot. So sometimes you're 2 trips a day going up and driving straight off the hill. So
I've seen some really good YouTube videos that just start a round bell at the top and roll.
if you had round bales, that would be great, but they're square and they're rolling to the back of the headache rack. So thank you.
30 seconds. I'm timing this one.
Okay, speaking of in the winter when it's slick, they lost their grader and it came straight down at my house. If my rock wouldn't have been there, it would have hit my house, okay? This big equipment does not need to be there for the cattle operation. We hauled hay off of that, all when I was little growing up. I rolled bells off of it. That was completely fine before he made a mess of it. It was fine farmland. They ran their cows on it for years. There was horses up there. There's no reason for this. It was just great. There was food on it. Now there's nothing but rocks.
Thank you. Is it something brand new we haven't heard? It better be. You've only got 20 seconds because I gave you over 3 minutes your first time.
Okay, I'm Shauna Twitchell. As far as what Travis just got up here and said, there would be no charge for him to take it out that way. We want Sean to get what he needs. We're not against him, but we do want our safety. And Bobby should not have to live in, her house is 30 feet from his road. 40 trucks a day is a potential. She should not have to not be able to watch TV, not be able to be outside visiting with people. She's got a huge deck that surrounds her house. She can't even go out there and sit on it when he's hauling. And then, as far as charging, I just wanted to make that clear.
That part doesn't matter because we can't put a condition that he has to go somewhere else that he'd have to pay. So it's not even in the discussion for us.
Okay. And
Thank you,
and I do want him to know he can fill our pit.
I'm new.
You're new. You get the full 3 minutes if you
Good.
want.
Probably won't use it, but my name's Dayton. I have no affiliation with Smithfield. I'm a landowner in Cache County, so this has been interesting. Come to this meeting. I've never been to one, so it's been informing, and I appreciate your guys' time. As someone, as an outlooker at this application, I see no reason why what Sean's seeking to do is illegal or should be terminated. As someone who does have land, if I had the money to do improvements to it, I would totally do it. And I love the idea of improving land and using it for agricultural sake. I grew up on a small farm, and something like this is really cool, being able to have longhorns. You don't see those very often. And what he seeks to do with this land is, I see no hazard to it, especially with the naming of the roads aren't meant for it. It sounds, from my first time here, the roads are definitely meant for it and can definitely handle the weight substantially due to the studies. So I don't ask that you guys take my word for it. I just figured I wanted to come up and speak what I've kind of gathered. And I think that it's something that you guys definitely take into consideration as far as what the extent that Sean and his ranch has gone to try and abide by the rules and do the necessary steps to be compliant with the code in the jury's decision. So I just wanted to come up and share that as well. There's definitely been some information that I don't definitely see valid as far as concerns of pedestrians on that road. I have hunted up Smithfield Canyon. I've traveled it, I've ran it, I've biked it. And the concern of speed is of which should be the concern, not of those You know, the recent accident is tragic. It's, you know, no one wants to be a part of it, and no one would. And I don't think traffic of trucks is going to change that. I think it takes to both parties, and seeing and listening to someone who's more than happy and compliant to abide by the speed limit and do those things necessary. It's the other party as well, being able to abide by the speed limit. I think that played a role in many of accidents as well. It's both parties. So I just want to come up and share that. Appreciate your guys' time, and
Thank you.
move on.
Looks like we might have exhausted them. Might not be anyone left in the room that hasn't
One or
spoken.
two that haven't been up here, but that's all.
Okay, the commissioners, do you have any other questions you would like addressed?
If I can, and I'm not going to add to it, I'm just going to take some as the applicant's agent. A couple of new conditions. Before you, you have several proposed conditions. Just in the conversation here, in an effort to address some of the concerns that have been raised, Mr. Darty has added to some conditions that he would like to propose, and Mr. Cronquist has approved and agreed to abide by those conditions. So some additional conditions that we'd like to add to the conditions for your consideration are a condition that there will be no application for an extension. So this will be a one-time 3-year application. That concern about perpetually reapplying and extending and extending and extending, we think is a valid concern. And so we would ask that you add that as a potential condition if that is a valid, if that is a concern that you guys have. Additionally, J brakes. Yeah, we would be happy to extend requirements from Smithfield City as they relate to J brakes to Mr. Cronquist's truck, and so he would agree to instruct his drivers not to use J brakes in order to prevent the noise issues that have been raised. So this is kind of where we're coming from. We're happy to take any kind of public comment and do anything that we can to make this operation safe and accessible and good for the road. As far as the road comments, I empathize with a lot of what's been being said, and I definitely don't want to downplay it. But the accident that cost a life up Smithfield Canyon did not involve one of Mr. Cronquist's trucks. And the importance of that is this. Mr. Cronquist isn't responsible for the quality of the road. He's not responsible for the blind corners that people going down too fast cause problems with. And that's why Mr. Cronquist wants to use his own guys. And if 25 miles an hour, the speed limit's too fast, he can tell him to go 20, right? That's the kind of thing that he can exercise by doing this himself through his own staff. And so that's also something we would like to submit as a potential consideration for restrictions.
Thank you. Okay, commissioners, any questions for staff? I have one for Stephen.
Yeah.
So I think for me, one of the big discrepancies is the acreage, right? If it's what the county thinks it is, we can't approve it because it's over the 5 acres. It kind of stops there. And if it's under 5 acres, then we can negotiate with some of the other conditions. So can you draw on that right there and do an acreage of area? I don't know. We should be able to, right? It's a lot of clicking. I mean,
Is that your family?
ideally we'd go out there. Ideally, we'd go out there and do some surveys, but there's a big difference there, right? 3 acres difference in what the county thinks it is and what they have. And so for me, if it's over 5, until we get that part remedied, I think we're dead in the water.
Kind of depends on how you measure it. I've done a couple measurements of that.
Yeah, I saw that one, and then it was hard to see what's.
Well, it's 4.9.
And that's his polygon here.
And it also kind of depends on what areas you consider
Well, that's-
the
yeah.
operation.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah,
storage
that-
areas that are clearly gravel that are piled up next to
Yeah, that's what I
roadways
wanted,
and
that's what I
rock
wanted to see. We'll call you up in a minute for
I was just going to
questions.
say Exhibit B is
Yeah,
an
and
outline that
I
we
was looking at
proposed.
that there, and it's just,
Exhibit B, according to my measurements, is about 4.5 acres.
see, where's B? Attachment B. Exhibit D. B, C. Where's B?
We're going to attachment or as
See exhibit
Or
C and
exhibit.
D.
It's an exhibit.
See the
So
after
if you
C
go down
and
to
D.
the applicant's letter of intent, and then just after that, they have the
further
exhibit
down.
A.
After
and then
exhibit B and C, or
Yep.
C and D. And that one's 4.5, you say?
Exhibit B, yep. Which they define the letter of intent.
Page number.
It is page 34 in the packet, or for that attachment.
So you're saying how much acre, are you still figuring?
Well, that
acreage in
one-
Oh, that's
that one's
6.96.
6.96.
Okay. That's all the area that's been disturbed.
It's from what I can see, and it's
Got the
being kind of
stockpile topsoil on the side.
Further, but that's still land disturbance permit. We're not taking material out of it, just like when you're farming. I mean, you're gonna disturb the whole upper part of that, when it levels off, it's gonna be level to the north, and then I'm gonna plow that whole thing in. And then it's gonna come back and be a pasture all the way across. So the upper part of that, where the white is on the bigger piece, is actually a big fill. It's what we're pushing off into that, and it's so steep. So that's not where we're moving anything else.
So I have a question for staff or legal, Mr. Chairman.
Mm-hmm.
So we just finished working with Geneva Rock on their Newton pit. And we had all kinds of restrictions, qualifications, what have you, hours, the time frame. They have to then in turn work with the state, dust control, OSHA, MSHA, all these other things. What do we call this, a commercial operation or a non-commercial operation? Where does all that come into play?
It doesn't if it's not
If it's
commercial.
under the 5 acres, then it doesn't get all the state requirements for a mining operation.
Under 5.
Under 5, yeah, and
What we're trying to
that's,
establish
that's
is
why
under
we have the minor exemption in there, so that you don't have all those. I mean, we could still do the hours of operation, but there's no state regulation if it's under the 5 acres.
There's still a Clean Air Act
But-
for dust control, but
But one further question there, so even on the Pisgah pit, so does the whole operation start and stop with this 5 acres? Or do they have to reclaim this and then they can move to another section? Where do we establish the 5 acres?
Well, and that was kind of mine, where Sean was saying that. So is any of the disturbed area, is that as big as your footprint's ever gonna go on the disturbed area? Or is that gonna move a little bit north?
It's gonna be a little bit more fill across, but it's not gonna be, where it says Crazy R Longhorn, that's gonna be pushed out into that fill area.
We included it,
Towards the bottom, is that what you're saying?
we included a total disturbed,
Yeah, and then it'll meet the other side the same elevation. So it's a big steep hill, so it'll all flatten out right there.
we included a total disturbed area, both in our proposal for the proposed findings on the first page, it's a little small, and that's also Exhibit B. Like the staff mentioned, we provided Exhibit B not because Exhibit B is a site plan of the extraction, but because that's the total disturbance footprint. So that's where that 4.97 acres of,
In my mind, that's a huge conflict though, because if we're talking 5 acres, we start and stop at 5 acres. If we exceed 5 acres, we're outside our 5 acres. We're now a commercial operation. We're governed by the state and whatever else.
Certainly.
So how does that work?
yeah, I can clarify that a little bit better. So the total operation is both an extraction or a cut and a placing of dirt or a depositing of material or a fill. So the total land disturbance that's going to occur involves both pulling material out and putting material in. The
Okay, but
total,
you're not answering my question. Where are you gonna be at? Are you gonna stay right where you're at 5 acres? Or are you gonna exceed it?
the total, yes, we're going to stay where we're at for the cut. The total cut is only 4.97 acres. Total cut, period, end of the conversation. It never gets bigger than that, it never moves. We're done at 4.97 acres.
So
of total
you're
cut.
done now then?
Of extraction, I mean, so this is not our cut map. What this is an aerial photo that took a picture of the disturbed material. The engineering diagrams that we attach as Exhibit C are the actual cut map. And the cut map begins at 4.97 acres of cut and ends at 4.97 acres of cut.
So if I could, Mr. Chairman, just make a comment on that. I mean, that's definitely a key part of this because it determines how this project's regulated. In a conditional use, I mean, a condition of surveying that area and putting down markers, and then it's something that is pretty measurable, right? You could limit the scope of the area based on a surveyed area, and if it goes outside of that, they're out of compliance, and the conditional use permit could be revoked.
We could include that as part of condition A, which was that it be less than 5 acres. We'd be happy to include that as part of that condition.
I would also like, if that was the way the commission goes, I do agree that a better map defining what that operation area is important, but I also think we should need to define what operation includes. Is it just the cut? Is it loading? Is it the access?
That was my question, because on other mining operations, it's
Everything.
It's the cut and fill and storage, all that's part of.
I would say not necessarily.
Part of
I mean, you look at Pisgah, I mean, their operations extend far beyond the cut area. You know, they have their building.
Well, their access
and
to where they
roads
cut now.
And I mean, when we look at Pisgah, I mean, we were looking at the excavated area.
Of the initial.
Mm-hmm. But, you know, I mean, they have operations involving a shop and maintenance and all of that it is distant from the actual cut area. So I think that's a valid question to ask, but if, you know, what is it? I think if you've got filled material, or, you know, we take excavated material and move it somewhere, well, that's probably disturbed. That's an impact. But if you've got trucks parked somewhere, I don't think that has anything to.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
To do with that,
I was looking at the disturbed areas, cut, fill, the footprint of the, yeah, because you could have trucks, I mean, that's not even in it there. If the trucks were parked there on the south, maybe it looks like there might even be some equipment there in the picture. It's hard to tell.
And
Where's that all? Just
yeah, so that's why I say, yeah, yeah, I wouldn't consider that in there, but.
And I would lean on Mr. Darty's comments that that's why there was a dual permitting that was required for this. There's the land disturbance permit, which has already been approved and we're operating under. And then there's the extraction permit, which is why I think that this council can look only at the area of material that is being pulled. And the 4.97 acres is also, throughout this process, Mr. Cronquist has tried to overestimate at every point he can. If we have 4.97 acres of cut and we have any space of fill, then by definition, part of that 4.7 acres has to go into the fill, right? There's no way for us to cut and extract all of the material and then have to fill. We're using a lot of the material on site. So 4.97 acres is the total area that is going to have a reduction in topology, and that's why we have a topographical map there. So that's why we were trying to overestimate and be on the high end of everything. But we also do have, it's important to identify, there is a land disturbance permit that governs the disturbance side of this that has been approved and we are compliant with.
So just to clarify, the land disturbance permit is mostly regarding stormwater.
Right.
Make sure it meets state requirements. We do have a site grading use within our code that requires a zoning clearance that would not apply to this property. It's a zoning clearance, essentially it states that the act of excavation or filling or combination thereof, or any leveling to smooth, horizontal, or sloping surfaces on a property in preparation for the construction of a building, but not including normal cultivation associated with agricultural operation. Excavation shall be less than 1,500 cubic yards per parcel. Additional excavation may only be permitted with a variance. This is something that we cited the property owner on, and they appealed and failed in that appeal process. There's still some pending litigation on that, but that is something to take into consideration, that if they're just governing just the operation of 5 acres, But then grading outside of that, that grading likely does not comply with our code.
Legal?
I'd say if you're looking at 1713 Hope Idaho Bravo, when it comes to, I'm not tracking, there's a clear definition in the county ordinances about what the operation, area of operation is essentially. You've heard arguments from staff saying what that would encompass more than that. You've heard arguments from the applicant. Ultimately, I think it's going to come down to what you guys find makes most sense here. And as long as you have reasons to support that, you make that finding and go in that sense. I'll defer to Mr. Sargent as well as Ben, any other comments on that. If there's something, my computer has died, and I'm in battery now, so I can't look up everything to quote it verbatim, but my thoughts on that.
So,
Go ahead, sorry.
Mr. Chairman, for legal or staff both, are we at a point in time, it was my understanding that we extended it for 90 days. So is this a do or die tonight? Or, I mean, I'm not comfortable doing any more personally unless if we're gonna proceed with it, we gotta survey that, we gotta know, and we gotta have this stuff detailed.
So it's been extended. But that is something that you can put as a condition, correct?
Yeah, we could condition approval, or we could apply conditions on it, and then they have to meet those conditions prior. If the planning commission so desires, it really, I mean, the reason we put timeframes on is so that we can answer questions in an expedient manner. But if we feel like there's more information that's needed, like one of the questions I have if we wanted to continue it, is right now we have a traffic study that is still under review. And so we have not accepted it, we haven't approved that traffic study yet from our Public Works Department to confirm that it complies with county standards, because we do have county standards, and so though the review's not done, there's likely going to be some comments and additional information that is required from that. And so there could be an argument to continue it so we can resolve a couple of these issues. I'm definitely not opposed to that if the applicant is not opposed to it.
Well, and we may have a,
Study in April?
No, we got it last week.
Okay, all right. It was
done in
dated,
April.
it was dated April,
Yeah,
so,
dated April.
okay.
and there may be a question, it sounds like there's a difference of opinion between the county and the applicant on commercial or non-commercial, and what that might be, which we may need an interpretation of to make sure.
That's one thing I've been asking is commercial and minor roads and everything else, so there's a definition of that. The agent has gone to great lengths to say it's not agricultural, so therefore.
Not commercial.
Not commercial, so therefore it doesn't impact what a minor road is. I like a definition. I don't even know if staff can give us some idea on the roads and stuff like that. It would be interesting to hear.
You thought you were gonna get away with that coming up, didn't you?
My name's Camden Jones. I'm a staff engineer at the county. I think it comes down to that table that the agent quoted, where commercial access is not permitted on a minor local road. And so it really all hinges on whether it's determined to be commercial or not. So it doesn't help a lot, but.
Yeah, and I think that's the other side is, what the county classifies it as.
Well, another question, Mr. Chairman, for Mr. Gunnell is, with the recent road manual adjustments, so if they were, and I don't know where this comes with the CUP, but if they were trying to build a house up there, there'd be, of course, I guess they come off the point of the county road. I just was wondering if there was any paving that could mitigate part of this, but we're not gonna require it because it's 100% on private, right?
Well, as I read the report, the width of the road was some places 16 where it's needed to be 20, right? So.
That's the Canyon Road.
Right.
So that would be in play.
So there are some conditions, and that's my point to legal here, is I'm wanting to understand minor local roads, the impact, or what's allowed to go on there. And we certainly have a determination of what is commercial, what is agricultural. And we've heard the agent talk about that he has defined it as not commercial. But I would like to see some further evidence as to what state code is and something like that, just so that I'm clear.
Yeah, that's what I just told Lane. We had 1 minute left before his 30 minutes were up. You got one, you're gonna make a motion to extend it and then ask one question before you leave, Brady?
Killed, it's my birthday today and my family's been waiting
Oh, well,
since 7:30
At least
for
it's
me.
not your wife's
So,
birthday.
You've had a birthday before. That we continue this for further facts, or if you're asking for my vote,
Well, first extend the meeting for a little bit for us.
I'll extend it for 2 minutes. I'm just telling you my opinion.
All right.
I'm either asking that we continue it for further facts, or I'm voting in disfavor of it.
Okay.
I'm out of here.
Thanks for that. Thanks for that. Run.
Have a good one, sir.
Hey, but don't speed on your way home. Okay, now we need a motion to officially extend the meeting.
I'll make the motion that we extend the meeting for 30 minutes. We got some other things we gotta cover.
Do we have a second to that?
I don't know if I want to second that.
Amend it.
Okay. I'll second it.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
So I've spoken with both Mr. Darty and Mr. Cronquist. We would not be opposed to an extension for additional facts if the commission determines that that's what they need. So we would also concur with the city and not, with the staff and not object to a continuance if the commission determines it needs additional facts. We would like a date certain though, so.
I would just say on that, Mr. Chairman, that we should outline what those additional facts are that would be germane to making a decision on this. If staff can help us with, to generate what those may be.
For me, the two would be, is it commercial or not commercial? We need a definition on that and where that falls for sure, because that's, if it is commercial, I think the road improvements are gonna make it so you probably don't wanna do it. If it's not commercial, then the road's fine, on there potentially. So getting that definition.
Perhaps that's something that the staff and the applicant can work on.
Yep.
How do we go about ensuring that this project stays within the boundaries of non-commercial?
And Mr. Commissioner, I would say that it's not a factual determination of whether it's commercial or not. It's more of an interpretation of county code, but I'd be happy to work with staff to ensure that whatever the interpretation is, applicant falls on the non-commercial side of it. So I would echo.
We'll carefully craft that.
I think part of the question that comes into play here is looking at county code. If you're in the temporary mine extraction under B there, it says these operations will have to operate under the same standards as a commercial operation, hence we would classify this as a minor local road.
That's what I read. That's why I'm so
Too. That's why I wanted more discussion on it.
But then I know you also are arguing that that section doesn't apply per se in your case. I think we just want some greater clarification on that argument, and me, myself, maybe it's just me being time of day or whatever, I wasn't fully following that. I'm not saying there's no argument there, but I think we're supposed to understand that front. I think that's something we need to get hashed out.
Sure.
And advise people afterward.
Yeah, and I'm happy to meet with the county.
Myself, for me personally, I know that's what you do.
No, yeah, that's what it was, to make sure we're
Like I said,
on the same side, whatever side that is, we can all agree to what that is.
And Mr. Chairman, when we do a continuance, we generally do it for up to a certain amount of time. Most of the time, it's 90 days, just for clarification's sake. When the applicant is ready, they can resubmit or say they're ready for another meeting, correct? Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, that's one of them, and then the area, whether it's the area of extraction or disturbance, and how that links with the land disturbance permit too, I think is critical to know, because if one's already out of compliance, we've got to get something in compliance before we let more happen, I think.
And we have not been moving material out. We have just been holding.
That's why I think we just get that, and that still may be a difference of opinion that I'm hearing.
No, I do agree. Since we've discussed it last winter, as far as my knowledge, there hasn't been activity that's been reported to us taking place, so.
Yep. So, okay, yeah, those are the two that I had that I needed cleaned up. I don't know if commissioners have any other questions?
Those are the two biggest ones.
Nolan, you had anything else?
The two big ones, I really want to know that, because if you read under the conditional use permit of a minor extraction, how that falls as far as minor road and commercial and or agricultural. I know your stance is non-commercial, so I get that. But at the same time, as has been stated, this has been going on a while, so I want an understanding of land movement and cut and area of extraction. So all of those are defined, because as you look at that, that's a big area, so we need to define that properly so that we understand what is allowed and what has been done so that it's mitigated.
I agree.
Do we need to get more input from Smithfield City where it goes through their plan?
They've sent some letters. We've got some responses from them, so. I mean, yeah, I think at least I'm comfortable with what they've.
Were there claimants in
sent
that?
in.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So we need a.
And just as part of this, you know, we have in the packet recommendation for denial without conditions. I think at another meeting, we should have an option for approval with conditions, so we can have a discussion on both options there.
Well, and then it'll be easier to make those conditions once we know a couple of those other
Correct.
questions for sure, so.
We'll talk about that. I have a little concerns about that statement, but we can talk about that at a different time.
Okay, I'll take a recommendation.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we continue the Sean Cronquist temporary extraction CUP for up to 90 days.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. Thank you.
If you made a comment and you did not sign in, please make sure you do before, so I have to spell your name.
Item number 5. I'm guessing everyone's gonna stay for this next item. Get you all on record for another comment.
I'm here on Shane. I'll stick with it. Yeah.
Get out of here, bro. Troublemaker.
Connor.
What? Uh-huh.
You can direct comments.
Never get to leave.
What do you want me to put?
Just your name and then you were here for.
Hey.
Oh, mine goes smoother than. Mr. Parker knows it's past my bedtime.
We hope it worked out.
Just in case you weren't tired of hearing from me. I'm here on the next one.
Okay. You have a presentation on this one, Connor?
I'm just gonna speed read. That's all we're doing.
I like that. I like that.
All right, so the Bold Canine Solutions LLC CUP. It's a request to operate a home-based kennel facility, use type 3200 on 13.93 acres in the agricultural zone. To all areas, north, south, east, west, it's surrounded by agricultural lands. The applicant wants to create a short-term residential kennel for housing animals and provide training and services and classes. The organization has a history of working with retired military animals as well as aggressive animals that would otherwise be euthanized. They typically rehome these animals with veterans. Employees, there will be 4 to 5 part-time employees on weekdays and 2 on the weekends. The letter of intent says there will be some unpaid interns, but they didn't specify how many, so that's one of the conditions, updating that letter of intent. The hours will be open to the public from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, will be closed on all major holidays. No special equipment will be needed. They don't expect more than 1 delivery per day between Monday and Friday during regular business hours. And they expect there to be fewer than 12 adult dogs on the property at any given time. The applicant has submitted application materials. Basically, they have to comply and abide by these materials that they submitted in the conditions that we throw on the CUP. These materials are preliminary in nature, so they just need to update their site plan, their floor plan, and their letter of intent. The operation will take place inside of an agricultural building. The structure was permitted last year and earlier this year through zoning clearances. That just means it was exempted from having to do inspections. But we spoke with the chief building official. He doesn't have any concerns. His main requests are just that they update their site plan and floor plans to show an accessible entrance
or an accessible path to the entrance and an accessible entrance itself, and an ADA compliant bathroom. They also just need to update their floor plans just for this structure to be a little bit more detailed. Signage, they didn't propose any signage in their letter of intent. If they need to add something, they just have to go through a zoning clearance or building permit. The fence, so just per county code, no aggressive dogs can leave the property. They have indicated that they're willing to work with the county on getting a fence that's suitable. So that's just one of those conditions on there. The primary access to the property is from 6400 West. It's a county road. It's maintained year-round and services residential and agricultural lands. Has an existing width of 20 feet, a right-of-way of 25 feet, no paved shoulder, and a 1 to 2 foot gravel shoulder, and an 8 to 15 foot clear zone is paved. It's considered substandard as to right-of-way width, paved shoulder, gravel shoulder, and clear zone. Secondary access is off of 8600 North. It's an unimproved road. It's maintained in the summer and it services agricultural lands. Has an existing width of 18 feet, a right-of-way of 25 feet, no paved shoulder, no gravel shoulder, and a clear zone of 18 feet and is unpaved. It's considered substandard as to travel lanes, right-of-way, gravel shoulder, and material. However, it's not a proposed access to this business. As a proposed CUP is an approved subdivision using existing building and it's an approved use for the zone. It's exempt from all road improvements, right-of-way dedication, and stormwater requirements. Basically, they just need to pave their driveway entrance and then get a right-of-way encroachment permit when they do that. Parking, so just per county code, all uses under index 3000 must provide 1 parking space for every 250 square feet or a parking analysis. If they go over 5 required parking spaces, they need to do a parking analysis, and the structure is well above that 1,250 square foot area, so they need to do a parking analysis. They also need to update their site plan because their parking is in the setbacks, so they just need to show that that's moved out of that setback area. Services, the applicant secured the use of a dumpster. The applicant just needs to update the LOI to include some more information about the operation of it, so how regularly be emptied, just things like that. Cache County Fire District had no comments. They had septic installed as part of a zoning clearance earlier this year. We contacted Bear River Health Department. The agent provided a letter. They don't have any concerns with it. The site plan jumped ahead there. The applicant does have a water right. They just need to show that that water right is sufficient for the proposed use.
Okay.
Impacts, noise, just per county code, they need to provide a sound level impact and assessment report. Basically, they can't go 10 decibels above the ambient sound. So for fierce, dangerous, or vicious dogs, just per Cache County Code 6.08.080, it's unlawful for a fierce, dangerous, or vicious dog to leave the property without being under the control of the owner or custodian. They must be kept in by an adequate cage, fence, or chain. So like I said earlier, the applicant's willing to work with us on keeping that fence to something that works for us. Wastewater, there is grooming area shown on the floor plans, but there's not really mention of it in the letter of intent. They'll just have to update their letter of intent to indicate how wastewater is going to be treated, or just how it's going to be dealt with. Notices were mailed to all property owners within 300 feet. It was posted in 3 public air places and posted to the Utah Public Notice website on September 20th. And we recommend approval with the conditions listed.
Okay, commissioners, any questions for staff?
I have none. It's pretty straightforward.
I have a question.
Okay.
So in your letter of intent, you say that there will be no more than 12 dogs on the facility at any one time. So that means that training capability, you could only have like 11 unless somebody's bringing in a dog. So I'd just like to know your method of training dogs and those coming in. Does that make sense? If you're training 12, then somebody can't come in and bring a dog to you to train. I just want to understand how your business model works.
Most of it is drop and train. It's what we call drop and train, where they'll bring the dog, train it during the day, and then they come and get it at night.
So it's not an overnight thing mostly?
Yeah, I mean, the training is mostly, we have an area for boarding, but training the dogs and drop and train is what we're trying to do mostly. The aggressive dogs is kind you don't wanna try and retrain some there. So if they're young, 3 or 4, you know, you can still retrain them and rehome them with some veterans and stuff. My partner who runs the dog business is a veteran. He's actually got a dog he brought back from Afghanistan. You know, they're cool dogs if you train them. You know, we've got aggressive dog kennels, but only like about 6 that we could keep at a time.
Okay.
They're all enclosed, and all our outdoor pens, even the non-aggressive dogs, we've got outdoor pens. We're engineering a tube on top of the fence that's in the pen. They can't get up over it. You know, we don't want dogs running loose. So.
Yeah, the building is currently still undergoing some construction, as you can see on the map up there. It's a bit further along than that now, but we're still in the process of getting everything put together. And so that's part of why we're gonna have to work with the county regarding fencing and the decibels and everything else, because it's just not ready to test, frankly, at this point. So once we get to the point that it's ready to begin moving into that use type, that's when we'll be able to do the sound tests. That's when we'll have the county come back out and look at the fences and everything else. But to the applicant's point, this is kind of 2 different businesses. There's the kenneling operation, which is the 12 dogs, and then there's the training operation. He's not taking dogs in and while they're kenneling, training them. It's more of kenneling is this part, training is a different part.
Okay, I just wondered how you'd have 12 and then change them around, so just looking at the number.
Okay, any other? It should be pretty easy for you to show you have enough water for 12 dogs with having the equivalent of 10 cows.
Use, I would think so.
I think by rough calculations in my head, you have enough for a couple hundred dogs, but.
Couple thousand maybe.
You're good.
Yeah. The only thing that I would add is one of the questions that the staff did raise was the question of waste. And so we've acquired a separate dumpster that will be taking care of a lot of, we don't anticipate there to be much waste generated. 12 dogs don't actually generate much waste in the grand scheme of an agricultural use, but we did acquire a secondary dumpster specifically for this kennel in order to help facilitate that waste disposal.
And we're not a grooming facility, but if someone picks up their dog, we want to clean it and bathe it, and I would assume all that would go in the septic system.
Which the septic department said was not going to be an issue when we communicated with them.
That's where that would be.
Okay.
Told you this won't be easier.
Well, you have them all like this. Well, you're gonna have to continue this one.
Oh, and please don't. I've had to apologize to poor Mr. Demler so many times about him being here at 9 o'clock.
That's all good, yeah. I was not planning against Tony. I feel bad for you guys.
They pay us really good.
If you felt really bad, you'd be on it still, so.
Okay, commissioners, what would you like to do?
I don't know, this seems like pretty straightforward. I would propose the approval of, what was this the Bold Canine Solutions CUP based on the conditions, which are 11 conditions and 2 conclusions.
I second the motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
I might add that my nearest neighbor is Orrin Hatch. He ain't complained once. Well, none of the people in the cemetery.
I was gonna say, you didn't open it for public comment, but I was just afraid someone would jump out of nothing. And
Hey there. It's good to see you guys. Appreciate it.
Good that you built where you did.
All right, you got,
Can we
well,
skip
depending
the
on what
general
clock
plan?
we go, you got either 11 minutes or 8 minutes.
Would you be okay if we did item number 7, and so that way our countywide planner doesn't have to come back next time?
You bet. We can do number 7.
We gotta break the planner in for late nights. So.
I've been to much later, unfortunately, so. Okay, looks like.
It's right there, sorry.
Oh, that's all right. That was my bad.
see if we got this set up right and get through this quickly for all of our sake. Okay. Okay, if, we'll see, I'll start talking and we'll see what happens. There we go. Thanks. I'm not gonna take the time to make it full screen right now. This is, there's a new requirement in state law for general plans that involves a water use and preservation element. That's a new requirement that has come as a requirement from the state. The main purpose of that is for water use and preservation to start being a consideration in land use, and particularly in the general plan. So this was added by the state legislature. The main thing that there's four main components that they are asking for, the first one is that they want us to evaluate the effect of permitted development or patterns of development on water demand and water infrastructure. And the second one is that they want us to consider methods of reducing water demand and per capita water use for existing development. So on that first one, there will be some calculation that will need to occur. And then the second, we'll be looking at methods to reduce the demand for existing development. The third component is methods of reducing water demand and per capita water use for future development. So this is moving from existing development to future development, that component. And then the fourth component is opportunities to modify the county's operations to reduce and eliminate wasteful water practices. And that applies specifically to county properties and facilities. So on the first one, the questions and issues that will be addressed is how does zoning and permitted types and development affect water usage? And how does a transition from agriculture without development to developed properties affect water usage? And does it increase it? And if so, to what rate? So that's information that we'll need to gather as part of this. On the second component an issue to be addressed, well, how can water use be reduced for properties that are already developed? And then on the third component, the issue to be addressed is, as new development occurs, how can we reduce the demand for water and the amount of water used per person? And then, let's see, again, the fourth will just be how do we reduce the water usage by the county on its properties and facilities. So the initial task to get started on this, we've put a request line item in the budget for this to be have a consultant assist and conduct this project, and we'll need to, if those funds are approved, then we'll need to issue a request for proposals and select a consultant. We'll need to invite participation and input to the canal and irrigation companies through mailing public notices. And then we'll need to provide a Class A notice under state law for the general plan, this general plan amendment, and notify the affected entities. And then we'll consult with the Division of Natural Resources and Division of Water Resources, which we already have done actually. And then just work with that consultant to guide and assist with the project. There is one item that I didn't mention in this, that the state requirement does require that that we consider how our water usage affects the Great Salt Lake and water going into the Great Salt Lake. And so that's a factor that will need to be considered as part of the project as well. The project needs to be completed by December of 2025. So a rough project outline is, we'll see how realistic this is, but just my rough thoughts initially were, would like to see if we can get the data within sometime by the end of February or potentially March, have the data analyzed by March or April, roughly, maybe the end of April, and then there will be an interview component where technically the state law says that we're requested to consult or request to consult with the water companies that are in unincorporated county. And then after that data is gathered and analyzed, we'll need to develop the policies that are proposed to go into the general plan, and then conduct staff review of those, and then share those with the commission and eventually the council. So then one of the main things that I need to just bring to your attention and request from you tonight, probably the main thing is just to allow, authorize staff to go ahead and notify the canal companies in the county. That's one party that we need to, and irrigation companies, and so that we can let them have the opportunity to provide input, and then go ahead and start working on a Class A notice for the project as well. I recognize that the county is not a water provider, and there's obviously, there's a strong respect for property rights and in the county, and that water rights are, one of those property rights. And so we're going to try and do this in a way that's fair to everyone and sensitive to the needs of existing users and as well as future users at the same time, and work to still be compliant with what the state is asking of us. So that's a summary of the project. I think I met the time limit.
You did great.
And I kept you awake too, so.
I would add one thing on your component 1.
Okay.
The transition from ag without development to development. I would split that into 2, right? Irrigated agriculture and non-irrigated ag, because those numbers are going to be pretty different in development.
Okay.
As we develop irrigated ag, essentially we just transfer the water right to a well and use the same water. But if it's dry land and we're drilling wells or supplying a development, it'll be a big difference on those.
Okay.
And the state will probably want to see that difference.
But aren't there some canal companies that you cannot transfer your irrigation rights to underground water rights?
There are, but they still transition, right? They still take ground out of irrigation from that company, buy a water right somewhere else and drill a well. So the overall water use balance is more similar
But
than irrigating dry land.
If you're doing that study, I'd like to know which of those water companies do not allow and do allow. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Good luck calling those 140. I'm guessing when they send notices out to our 140 companies, they get a response from 4. So.
Yeah.
And I talk to them all the time. I still can't get that.
And how do you prove that water actually goes back to
Yeah.
the aquifer?
Well, that's my point. I want to make
You
sure
don't.
that those who
It
own
does.
water rights are protected if they're using them the right way, so.
Yeah, that's a whole nother study.
So is the commission okay with us beginning to notice for this project? Because technically state law says that the planning commission prepares this, and so we'll be doing it on your behalf, but we need you to give us that okay. All right, so.
A vote for that, or if we all go like this, is that okay?
Consent will be fine.
We give the
So that'll
consent.
be the Class A notice, and then the canal and irrigation companies as well. All right.
Perfect.
All right, thank you much.
I don't know if we have time to cover the other items.
Well, that's what how much do we have for next month so far?
A lot.
We do have a lot.
It might be worth it to extend it 15 minutes. at the very
Think
least.
you can get through this in 15 minutes?
Extend it by
I was gonna
5
say,
minutes and I can do it.
Which one? Are you talking 6 or 8?
He said 5 minutes, he can have it done.
The noticing one. So
Okay, yeah, the noticing one. I'll buy that. We can get through that quick. But we're gonna
Chairman,
have to extend it.
I moved that we extend the meeting for like 5 minutes.
All right. Depending on which
Calling
clock
your
you go
bluff.
off. According to mine, you got till 8:04.
All right.
We'll go off this one because those two are both quite different.
9:04.
9:04. Go.
Wait, hold on. I have to get it. How you get going here? Even
You just hit the slideshow, just not the arrow, just hit that.
All right, so let's start the timer.
I have the timer on.
Perfect, let's go. All right, so this is the noticing presentation. So how do we currently notice? Basically, we just generate a list of parcels that are nearby. It's a 300-foot distance. It's just done through a GIS widget. So that's just generally how that's done. Then we get that address, we print out a notice, we mail it to them. So a couple months ago, we had an issue with a rezone, so a review of the White Bison noticing complaint. These 3 parcels complained that they didn't get a notice. The basic breakdown of what happened is one was kind of close to the buffer. It was personally noticed. But the basics is this one was in a trust, and the mailing notice went to that trust address, which isn't the home address. So that's what happened there. Same thing there. It was in a trust and went to the trust address and not the home address. And then this person was just well outside of that 300-foot buffer.
Yeah.
So increasing the buffer distance, that's a common method I've heard of noticing more people and just kind of having a better noticing process. So we're going to show you an example. Here's a 300-foot buffer, just around White Bison. That's what that looks like. And so 15 parcels were noticed, and 2 of those parcels had homes. A 500-foot buffer, 26 total parcels were notified, 4 homes were notified. 1,000 feet, 32 total parcels notified, 4 of those had homes on them. In the 1,500-foot buffer, 48 parcels notified, 10 of them had homes on them. So the summary, basically, as you can see, it just kind of grows out from there. So it went from 15 total parcels notified with 2 homes, 26 total parcels, 4 homes, 32 total parcels, 4 homes, and 48 total parcels with 10 homes. So here's another example with a little bit more of a dense area. 300-foot buffer, that's just what that looks like. So 11 total parcels, 11 total parcels were notified, 7 of them have homes. 500-foot buffer, 15 total parcels notified, 9 homes. 1,000 feet, that's what that looks like. 24 total parcels with 14 homes. Then 1,500 feet, 33 total parcels notified, 19 homes notified. So it's just the same idea, 11 total parcels with 7 homes, 15 total parcels with 9 homes, 24 total parcels with 14 homes, and 33 total parcels with 19 homes. So generally what we're just kind of hoping for y'all to give us is just a better noticing process. Do you have any ideas?
Could I ask a question? Because in my memory, this was reduced, the distance that we were noticing, this was reduced, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, something like that. I think it used to be more than this. And maybe we can look back at that. Nolan, you've been here a long time.
I actually talked to Chris and Josh about this a while ago, and they had come up with, okay, sending out more than 300 feet gets complicated, but they had proposed maybe posting a sign for those neighborhoods around that area. I agree, because I hear this all the time, that we need to expand our notification area.
Yeah, and even looking at that one, even the more dense one, that's really not that many.
No.
Even if you go to the 1,500, you're right, you're barely over 50 notifications, which I think that's bigger than we need. 1,500 feet's quite a bit.
Especially if you're talking about a subdivision that has a substantial amount of homes that are gonna drill wells. All of those people would really like to know the impact of that.
Yeah, or a zoning change or a conditional use.
Right.
And there's a lot of things that, yeah, I would be in favor of.
We
at
need
least
to
seeing what
expand.
it used to be, maybe, if we did reduce it.
And just to play devil's advocate, there are probably parcels in here where you would have no notifications.
There are, yeah.
Correct. I think with Demler, it was just all ag land, so it just went to like 4 people, something like that.
But I'm just thinking down in the, the south, some of the canyon property down there, it could easily be, there would be no notifications that would go out.
And get a response, for sure.
A lot of what we see too is people who own one parcel, but then they also own all the surrounding parcels. It just goes to that, basically.
Well, if you're right on a boundary of a subdivision, you're gonna.
Then you're gonna get a lot of them.
Everybody in the subdivision.
Yeah. If you get too much notification or boundary, then you'll never get it done. It's gonna have people come, it's not affecting them.
I do think a common requirement is posting signage on property, whether that's the county or whether that's the applicant. I know some organizations, counties and cities will require them to post like a 4x4 sign, and other cities like Logan has like a public notice sign that they put that's yellow, but you have to go out and read the notice that they put in the little slot. And so there's a couple different options that we could look at to provide better.
Nibley City does the bigger one. This proposed thing is gonna be
Nibley City
on there.
requires the developer to put up a sign.
Yeah.
I think that's reasonable.
Okay.
Do we know what other counties are sending out notices as far as feet? are they doing?
I think 300 feet is the minimum distance by state law, but I'd have to look at it a little bit.
It's also important to note, we don't have to notify property owners for administrative items. That is not a requirement. So subdivision, CUP, that's something that we do in addition to what state law requires. And so we don't necessarily, for zone changes, we do have notification requirements that we have to meet because it's a legislative matter. But state code has recently changed, well, changed within the last 10 years to make it so we don't have to do that anymore. And so that is also something we consider. We don't necessarily have to send out letters for administrative applications. I don't think it's an issue that we do, but.
I think it's good that we do. Right, then someone doesn't come and say.
Yeah.
Which you could say, well, the law lets us do it that way, but that's not a good answer. I think notifications are a good thing. And I'd be in favor at least increasing it a little bit, or seeing what it used to be if we really did decrease it. Maybe not. You've been around longer.
It really seems like there was a change made.
I don't recall that, Jason, but it could have, I mean,
There was at one point.
Was there?
how long ago? Do you remember what the,
It's probably been 6+ years ago, and I want.
2 or 3.
I've been here a long time.
2 or 3.
Yeah, I wanna say it went from like 500 to 600 down to the.
So we might have cut it in
Yeah.
half. So if you could research that might, maybe we just go back to what it was, or, I don't know, I'd be fine. But that'd be good to know, to see when that was done. And
It would have been under Josh, is when it
Yeah,
happened.
probably. That was a while ago.
and we were here under Josh too, so, right?
Thanks, Connor. That's good to see that, though. And at least now when people ask us why they didn't get notified, we can explain it to them better.
I doubt
The
they
trust
have
one's a
it.
big one. The trust one's a good one, for them to understand that it went to your cousin in Arizona or something.
Well, see, that was the whole thing with White Bison is it just went down to an address in Willard.
Yeah.
I'm just like, okay.
But, some things like when we did the transportation master plan, hey, that probably just goes through state notice, just through and very few people are gonna be watching that, right? Those are the ones that personally, I think, where this is really looking at, this is what our policy's going to be in the future. Yeah, the CUP and all that for the local area, but, that's one thing that concerns me is when we have something like that on the agenda and we have absolutely nobody here
It's because
to listen or comment on it. That
it doesn't
concerns
affect
me
them
because that's,
directly tomorrow. That's why they don't come.
yeah.
I don't know how you get them here.
Hopefully with those, we try to do, at least in our department, we try to do a lot of open houses and outreach prior. So hopefully by the time the meeting takes place, we've already done a lot of public comment. But I agree. I think especially those plans, that's where it's really important. Like a CUP, they can come in and hate it, but we may still have to approve it.
Absolutely.
But with a master plan or code change, we have a lot of discretion on what we do with those. So their input is much more valuable in those circumstances.
That's why I thought we want more discussion on the code change for solars.
Oh, yeah.
Because I've received a lot of comments on that already. So yeah, it'll be a good one. Okay, we holding off on item 8?
Yeah, we're out of time. I'm more than happy to talk about it if the planning commission wants to stay.
Let's extend it. Let's go.
But
Connor, be quiet. It's
Extend
getting
it.
late.
How many
I
times?
keep getting texts from my wife. What time are you coming home? So what is next month look like? You say there's a lot.
I have a stack of papers that's no joke, like this thick on my desk.
So we better plan till 10
We have
o'clock
the
next
master
month.
plan, we have a bunch of rezones, CUP.
Powder Mountain submitted their full master plan and a zone change.
Oh.
So their documents they submitted to us yesterday is like, I think total, we're looking at about 1,500 pages we're gonna go through this
I
month.
thought it was 5,000.
That'll be on the agenda.
So there might have been a couple of reports that.
How soon can you get us?
Well, we're gonna go through them early next week.
Yeah, if we could see that one before Friday.
We'll set, we can
before
send that
the
out to the
meeting.
planning commission early so you can start to get familiar.
Yeah, that'd be good. We probably got a sneak peek of it on the news the other night when they showed what their expansion was gonna do, but
Yeah, there's been some of the
Yeah.
information has been made public.
they showed what all their new lifts are and the public-private part. There's a big story on KSL or something the other night I saw on there. So it's already out there, I guess, but now we've got to approve it for them. Okay.
Adjourned?
We're adjourned unless there's any objections to that.